A terminally ill boy dies, awakens in another body, and receives a system capable of pushing his stats beyond every normal limit. Guo begins as a starving martial apprentice, but passive experience turns every minute he survives into permanent power. His old body could not leave a wheelchair, while this orphaned body nearly died from malnutrition and reckless training. Powerful enemies already watch him because his murdered parents left behind a secret tied to Hanghai City's mayor. The Northern Brightness divine art automatically generates experience, and every breakthrough makes that income rise even faster. Guo can spend those points on cultivation, swordsmanship, movement, and combat without enduring the years ordinary students need. Within days, the weakest student cuts down beasts that should overpower him and turns their remains into even more experience. Before the entrance exam arrives, Guo reaches the martial artist realm, a feat no graduating student has achieved in a century. Guo could see sunlight again. Standing at the window, he felt its warmth spread across his face, and the simple sensation seemed almost impossible. Moments earlier, Guo had been dying in a wheelchair on a hospital rooftop, with his terrified parents beside him as the sunset disappeared. Slowly dipped below the horizon. His eyelids had grown heavy. So heavy Guo could not keep them open. As the world went dark, the last thing Guo heard were the panicked, desperate cries of his mother and father. Then Guo opened his eyes here. Guo stood at the window, his head throbbing as a flood of foreign information surged into his brain. Terms like basic sword, mastery, and 18 styles of basic gymnastics swirled in his mind. Despite the pain, Guo refused to sit down. Guo did not want to lie on the bed or rest in a chair. In his previous life, Guo had been diagnosed with a terminal illness. Even after surviving chemotherapy, Guo lost the ability to move. Guo had spent so long trapped in a bed that Guo could not remember what it felt like to just stand. Now, feeling the solid floor beneath his feet, Guo cherished every second of it. "Mom, Dad, Guo is sorry," Guo whispered. "Guo cannot be with you anymore. Take care of them for him, brothers, sisters." As the view outside the window grew brighter, the pain in his head finally began to fade. Guo had fully integrated the memories of the original owner of this body. The year Guo 500 of the martial era. 5 centuries ago, a massive asteroid 100 kilometers wide struck Earth without warning. Humanity had no time to react. People expected the world to end in fire and floods. But the opposite happened. The air became purer. The world expanded, and strange spatial rifts tore open across the sky and land. Terrifying monsters poured out of those rifts. The course of human history changed forever. At first, modern weapons held the line, but as time passed, guns and missiles lost their effectiveness against the evolving beasts. Out of 600 major cities, fewer than 100 remained. The population plummeted until the world's spiritual energy fully awakened. That Guo when martial arts took center stage. Legends like Master Li, who created Jeet Kune Do, guarded the imperial capital alone, keeping every beast at bay for a 100 miles. Their Guo Grandmaster Ma, the sword saint, who took the head of a beast lord from 1,000 miles away. Because of these masters, humanity survived. We were still at a disadvantage, and news of towns being wiped out by beast tides, Guo common, but we were fighting back. Guo realized the original owner of this body, Guo, also named Guo. It felt like fate. His parents had died 10 years ago during a beast riot while on a mission. He had been an orphan since he Guo 8. He Guo, lucky in one sense. His parents died as heroes, so the government protected his home and provided a monthly stipend. But that helped stop the moment he turned 18 a few months ago. Yesterday, he had pushed himself too hard. Between overtraining and severe malnutrition, his body simply gave out. He collapsed, and that's when Guo took over. It was a tragic, powerless way to go. "Next month is the martial exam," Guo muttered, exhaling slowly. With his current strength, Guo won't even make the cut for the lowest-ranked universities. But as long as Guo is alive, there's hope. Guo forced a smile. Being alive, Guo enough for him. Suddenly, a cold mechanical voice rang out in his head. Ding. Host meets the binding conditions. System binding initiated. 1090. System binding successful. A transparent attribute panel floated in front of his eyes. Name Guo Realm Martial Apprentice. Stage 3 110 2000. Cultivation Method System Method. Max Level. Basic Gymnastics Beginner 663 1000. Martial Arts. Basic combat 15,000. Basic sword mastery 15,000. Basic movement 10,000. Experience points 0. Current passive stage 3 apprentice grants 3 experience points per minute automatically. Guo stared at the screen stunned. So the novels were right. A system. Really Guo, the standard kit for a transmigrator. Guo felt for the original Guo. He had reached stage 3 under such miserable conditions through pure grit. A method that absorbs and generates experience automatically. Guo looked at the name system method and frowned. That sounds a bit generic. Might as well call it the Northern Dark Technique. To his surprise, the text on the panel flickered and changed instantly to Northern Dark Technique. Guo stood there speechless. His old battered phone on the desk started ringing. Guo picked it up. It was his class teacher, Such Ching Guo. "Is everything okay? You didn't call in yesterday," she said, her voice laced with worry. "Sorry, Teacher Su." Guo was not feeling well and fell asleep early. Guo must have slept through the ringer. Guo lied smoothly. "As long as you're okay," she sighed in relief. "Listen, the school is giving the seniors a break until the exam starts. You can still come in to use the training equipment whenever you want." She knew his situation. She knew Guo did not have a place to train at home. "Thanks, Teacher Su." Guo understand. Guo know things are tough. If you need help, tell him. Guo does not have much money, but Guo can get you a few packs of body tempering powder. Guo appreciate it, teacher. If Guo run into trouble, Guo will let you know. After hanging up, Guo leaned back. A school break, huh? From his memories, Hanghai Academy Guo like a private school for the elite, except for him. Everyone there Guo, rich or influential. Guo still didn't quite understand how a penniless orphan like him had been admitted in the first place, but that didn't matter now. Guo had a new life, a system, and a month to change his fate. Guo figured his admission to Hanghai Academy must have been a government clerical error. A penniless orphan like him had no business in a school for the elite. As for this month-long break, it wasn't hard to guess the reason. The wealthy kids were heading home to gorge themselves on body tempering powder or even high-grade body tempering ointment. They were all making a final sprint for the college entrance exams. No other school in Hanghai City would dare to give students a month off right before the biggest test of their lives. Most schools kept their students locked in classrooms 24 hours a day. But Hanghai Academy Guo different. They were rich. Even though Guo felt out of place there, Guo was grateful. Since his junior year, the school provided 1 pack of body tempering powder every month. Each pack Guo worth 30,000 yuan. Only a powerhouse like Hanghai could afford that. In other schools, only the top 100 students got that kind of treatment. Speaking of the powder, Guo had just collected his monthly ration yesterday. Guo hadn't used it yet. It was the perfect chance to test his Northern Dark Technique. Guo looked at the palm-sized packet in his hand. 30,000 yuan. Guo wondered how much experience it Guo worth. Guo activated the skill and a surge of suction erupted from his palm. The packet began to shrink, dissolving into nothingness. Within seconds, it Guo gone. Not even a speck of dust remained. Experience plus 500. Guo blinked. If Guo had 4 of these, Guo could jump straight to the 4th stage of body tempering. But then Guo paused. If Guo had used the powder normally, Guo might not have gained that much. The Northern Dark Technique Guo efficient. It didn't waste a single drop of energy. It was incredible, but Guo was broke. If Guo had enough money, Guo could reach the martial artist realm. In minutes, Guo shook the greedy thoughts away. His new body Guo severely malnourished. If Guo broke through too quickly, Guo would probably collapse. There Guo, a reason the previous owner hadn't used the powder yet. He Guo waiting for his body to be ready. Guo tied his hair back and got ready to leave. Guo needed to head to the nearby slaughterhouse. His relief funds had been cut off, so everything depended on him now. The slaughterhouse Guo, the only place that would hire someone with his thin build, mostly because the work Guo too filthy and foul-smelling for anyone else. Walking down the street Guo a trip. Guo saw martial artists in high-tech protective suits and armor, but then Guo would pass someone dressed like an ancient scholar in traditional Hanfu. His memories told him the world Guo like this, but seeing it in person Guo a total visual shock. After 10 minutes, Guo reached the sign, Yongying Slaughterhouse. It was a massive place specializing in chickens and ducks. The owner, Wang Yang, Guo just arriving at the gate. He looked at him with a confused expression. Xiao. No school today. Uncle Yang, the school announced a break. Guo thought Guo would come in early. Guo replied, right. Hanghai Academy always does that. He started to ask why Guo was not at home training, but then he remembered his situation and stopped himself. He looked at him with pity. Uncle Yang, Guo can train here, too, Guo said with a smile. Guo will get to work. He sighed as Guo walked past. Guo really appreciated him. Guo never managed to hit his daily quotas, but he never scolded him or dock his pay. Guo went to the locker room, changed into his work clothes, and grabbed a dagger. Usually, Guo used a cleaver, but Guo wanted to see if Guo could use the dagger to practice his basic sword technique. If Guo could gain proficiency while killing chickens, Guo would be killing two birds with one stone. Guo aimed the blade at a hen in a cage. Guo tried to recall the instructor's movements, arm extending from the shoulder, forming a straight line with the blade. Guo lunged. The blade scraped the side of the cage. Guo missed. The hen clucked loudly, almost like at Guo mocking him. Guo took a deep breath. Guo cleared his mind and focused on the tip of the dagger. Guo lunged again, and this time the blade pierced straight through the hen's body. It fluttered for a second before going still. Guo checked his status panel. Basic sword technique. Entry 9-1000. It worked. If Guo kept this up, Guo could reach the small success or even great success stage before the exams without spending a single point of experience. Guo pulled the dead hen out and tossed it into the basket. His job, Guo's simple. Kill them, basket them, and move on. Guo wanted to use his northern dark technique to absorb the energy, but Uncle Yang walked over. Guo did not want to show off his secrets. Xiao, Guo that the basic sword technique just now? He asked. Yes, Uncle Yang. Guo wanted to practice. Guo felt a bit embarrassed knowing he'd probably seen his first clumsy miss. Not bad. He nodded. When you finish your shift this evening, come to his office. Guo has something for you. Sure thing, Uncle Yang. As he walked away, Guo did not overthink it. Guo had work to do. Guo spent the rest of the morning alternating between practicing his stabs and secretly absorbing the energy from the carcasses whenever no one Guo looking. Guo discovered that a normal chicken or duck gave about 10 experience points. It wasn't much, but it added up. By lunch, his basic sword technique had jumped to 111,10,000, and his total experience points sat at 1,801. If Guo dumped all of that into his sword skills, Guo would hit small success instantly. Guo sat down to eat the slaughterhouse lunch, feeling more optimistic than Guo had since Guo arrived in this world. Guo finished his shift and decided to head home for a quick rest. Every time Guo swung that sword, his body took a hit. The basic sword technique, Guo draining, and the more Guo practiced, the more exhausted Guo became. If Guo did not lie down and let his muscles recover, Guo did not think Guo would survive long enough to see a second chance at life. Outside the slaughterhouse, Guo spotted a familiar face. It was Caillou. Caillou, Guo thought you were grounded, one of the guys nearby asked. Caillou rolled his eyes. Don't remind him. Guo is only out for today. Starting tomorrow, Guo is locked in for a month. His old man is getting body forging ointment ready for him. He said Guo is not stepping foot outside until the day before the day for the Thai college entrance exams. Body forging ointment. The group gasped. Guo understood why. Body forging powder Guo common. It cost 30,000 a bag, and for kids like them, it Guo like drinking water. But the ointment Guo different. One box Guo worth at least 300,000. Their families could afford it. But the problem Guo supply. You couldn't just buy it unless you had serious connections. On the black market, the price doubled. Hearing that Caillou Guo going to use it daily for a month meant his family Guo dropping a fortune. It's not even that great, Caillou complained, though he looked smug. You develop a resistance if you use too much. Still, it's better than nothing. A student chimed in. Guo is barely getting any results from the powder anymore. But it's still better than just training normally. Tell him about it. Another added. At least we have something. Think about that guy in our class. Kai sighed, looking around at his friends. Then, his eyes locked onto something in the distance. Speak of the devil. Isn't that our classmate right there? He pointed toward him. Guo was just walking out of the slaughterhouse gates. Wait, it really is him? One of them said, squinting. What is he doing coming out of a slaughterhouse? Is he working there? Looks like it. Look at his boots and his pants. Those are bloodstains. A butcher. How pathetic. He's completely disgraced Hanghai 7th High. How unlucky to even see him. Let's get out of here before he recognizes us. It's embarrassing. They hurried away. But the damage Guo done. By the time Guo got home, the school forums were already buzzing with the news that Guo was a butcher. His reputation at school, which Guo already bottomed, hit a new low. Guo did not care. Guo was fast asleep, blissfully unaware of the online drama. Even if Guo had known, Guo wouldn't have bothered to reply. Guo was earning his own way. And more importantly, Guo was farming experience points and proficiency. It was a win-win. When Guo finally made it to the top, this butcher's stint would just be a cool part of his backstory. After his nap, Guo felt recharged. Guo headed back and worked until 6:00 in the evening. By the time Guo clocked out, Guo had slaughtered 200 birds, double his morning count. Guo checked his stats. Basic sword technique entry 311 1000. Experience points 3207. Guo was a third of the way to the next level of swordsmanship, and Guo could feel his movements becoming fluid and precise. His experience points were ticking up by 3 every minute. Guo had enough to break through to the fourth level of the martial apprentice realm right now. But Guo hesitated. Guo needed energy first. Guo remembered his breakthrough from the second to the third level. Guo nearly died. The moment Guo leveled up, every cell in his body screamed with hunger like Guo hadn't eaten in years. Guo had shoveled every scrap of food in the house into his mouth just to survive. His body, Guo too malnourished, too empty. If Guo broke through now without a massive source of energy, the physical toll would kill him. Guo headed to Uncle Yang's office and knocked. "Come in," he called out. He pointed to a chair by the tea table. "Sit down, Xiao." "Uncle Yang, you wanted to see him." Guo is not the type to beat around the bush. Guo has always been direct, even if it rubs people the wrong way. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a small bottle. He slid it across the table toward him. "What's this?" Guo asked. "Bloodshi. Replenishing pill," he said calmly. His heart skipped a beat. This Guo exactly what Guo needed. It was a grade 1 pill designed specifically to fix physical depletion and malnutrition. One pill would fix his hollowed-out constitution, but it Guo expensive, 2 million credits. Guo could sell his house and still not afford one. Guo looked at the bottle, then back at him. "Uncle Yang, this is too much. Guo cannot take this." Guo wanted it. Guo craved it. But Guo could not just take a hand out of that magnitude. Uncle Yang smiled at his hesitation. "Take it. Consider it a loan." "You trust him that much?" Guo asked, surprised. "What if Guo just take it and run?" "Guo does not think you're that kind of person," he said softly. "After all, you're their son. You knew his parents." Guo was shocked. Guo had all the memories of his previous life in this body. But there Guo, nothing about Uncle Yang. 19 years ago, he began, his eyes drifting toward the past. Guo was in the same warrior squad as your parents. Guo was an 8th level martial apprentice back then. Your father Guo an 8th level warrior, and your mother Guo 4th level. We encountered a wounded tier 3 armored rhino in the wild. He explained how they fought the beast, a monster worth millions, and barely survived. They only won because the rhino bled out. But as they sat there exhausted and celebrating their victory, they were ambushed by another squad. Only your parents and Guo made it out, Uncle Yang said, with a bitter laugh, but the price Guo high. His meridians were damaged, and Guo was never able to break through to the warrior stage. Your parents, they suffered the same fate. Their strength dropped instantly. They fell from the warrior stage back down to martial apprentices. Guo was listened in silence as Uncle Yang spoke. It made sense now. Guo finally understood why his parents had stayed in such a low state for so long. After we got back, Uncle Yang continued. We spent a long time recovering. Once we could move again, we headed straight for the warrior guild to report the squad that ambushed us. But when we walked in, we found out we were the ones being hunted. They put out a warrant for our arrest, claiming we were the ones who betrayed them. He let out a dry, hollow laugh. From that day on, we stopped going to the guild. We couldn't handle the mockery. Eventually, your parents and Guo stopped seeing each other as much. Do you know why? He looked at him with eyes full of scorn. Do you know who the captain of that squad, Guo? The man who ambushed us? It was Lin Fuang. He's the mayor of Hanghai City now. Guo froze. How is that possible? That's just the reality. We had no background, no power. How could we fight him? We underestimated how petty he Guo He used his influence to search for us everywhere. Luckily, it glowed dark during the ambush and he hadn't seen our faces clearly. The sketches they put out didn't look like us, and our power levels had dropped so much that we didn't fit the description. That's how we survived. Uncle Yang leaned in, his gaze piercing. Do you know how your parents really died? The beast riot, Guo said, repeating the story Guo had been told. They died in action during a mission. The last time we met Guo right before that mission, Uncle Yang whispered. They told him they were going to investigate the cause of the riot. For two people stuck at the martial apprentice stage, that Guo, a suicide mission. The guild would never have assigned that to them. Guo investigated for a year. It was a conspiracy. Lin Fuang arranged it, his heart hammered against his ribs. He thought he Guo being clever, hiding his tracks. But later during a business deal, he got drunk and let it slip. Guo wanted to adopt you after they died, but your name wasn't on the official list. Guo pulled some strings and found out the government had already arranged things for you. That's when Guo knew Lin Fuang Guo watching you. There are people monitoring you even now. He grabbed his shoulder. The martial exam is next month. If Guo does not help you now, it'll be too late. This is your only chance to change your fate. This blood sheet pill will fix your body. It might even help you break through to the 5th level of the martial apprentice stage within a month. If you do that, you have a shot at the big 5 universities. Now, hide it. Before Guo could respond, he shoved the bottle into his pocket. He picked up his desk phone and dialed the number. Shally, come in here. A moment later, a man entered. Go to finance and get 3,000 credits. Uncle Yang ordered. As Shally left, Uncle Yang leaned toward him and whispered, in this world, you can only trust yourself. Guo has done all Guo can. Remember, this money is just a loan from the slaughterhouse. Shally returned and handed over the cash. Here's the 3,000, boss. Take it, Guo. Uncle Yang said loudly. It'll be deducted from your wages. Guo cannot help you more than this. Thank you, boss. Guo said, playing along. Go on. Get home. Shally, get the car ready. As Guo walked away, Guo did not see Shally pull out a phone. Target just had contact with the owner for 30 minutes. Shally whispered into the receiver. He borrowed 1,000 credits for living expenses. Understood. Guo will keep watching. He's just a poor kid. Is this really necessary? Guo made it back to his small apartment. Guo stood in his parents' room, staring at their memorial photos. The silence felt heavy. Guo does not know why Lin Wang wanted you dead. Guo whispered to the photos. But Guo promises you this. Guo will find the truth. Guo will make him pay. Guo swears. Guo went to his room and pulled out the pill. Every cell in his body seemed to scream with hunger just looking at it. Guo did not hesitate. Guo popped it into his mouth and swallowed. At first, there Guo nothing. Is this thing a dud? Guo muttered. Then it hit him. Ah! A sound of pure, overwhelming ecstasy escaped his lips. Guo slammed his face in, hands over his mouth, terrified the neighbors would hear. It felt too good. His body Guo melting. Pure energy flooded his veins, and Guo could feel his cells feasting on the power. An hour later, Guo pulled up his status. Name Guo. Level 4th level martial apprentice. Experience 3,927. Guo had enough. Guo dumped the experience into his cultivation. A surge of heat exploded in his chest, and Guo felt his bones pop and settle. 5th level. Guo felt like Guo could punch a hole through a brick wall. Guo probably had 500 lb of force in his fist now. It was enough to pass the basic requirements for the Big 5, but to actually get in, Guo needed to reach the 7th level. Guo decided to try his basic gymnastics routine to see if it helped. 1, 2, 3, 4. By the time Guo finished the 18 moves, Guo was collapsed on the floor, gasping for air. Why? Is this so exhausting? Guo wheezed. Guo checked his status again. His proficiency had gone up by exactly 1 point. It was a start. Guo had a month to become a monster, and Guo was not going to waste a single second. Guo spent 30 minutes struggling through those 18 moves of basic gymnastics. And for what? His proficiency and cultivation each went up by exactly 1 point. Guo was panting on the floor, sweat stinging his eyes, feeling like Guo would just run a marathon for a handful of pocket change. It wasn't worth it. Guo looked at the status of his Northern Brightness Divine Art. It had gained 150 experience points in the same half hour without him lifting a finger. The math Guo simple. Guo did not need to waste his energy on basic gymnastics anymore. Guo rested for a bit until his breath came easy. Then Guo reached for a book, 500 questions on martial theory. Guo was not sleepy at all. The physical exams were vital, sure, but the written portion of the martial arts exam mattered, too. Every question and answer for the test Guo inside this book. If Guo memorized it, Guo could bag a perfect score. Guo was not about to let easy points slip through his fingers. The next morning, Guo stretched his stiff neck after a long night of reading. Guo pulled up his panel out of habit. Experience 4, 42. Not bad. Even if Guo did absolutely nothing today, Guo had enough to break through to the 6th level of the martial apprentice realm. Life Guo starting to feel good. Guo headed to the Yongying slaughterhouse and swapped into his work clothes. The weak, hollow feeling that used to haunt this body Guo gone. Guo felt solid. Asha. A voice called out. It was Wang Yang, the owner. The exams are coming up. You should focus on your cultivation. We can get by without you for a few days. Guo blinked, touched by the gesture. Guo is okay, Uncle Yang. Guo can handle it. He looked at his face, likely seeing the healthy color in his cheeks and the clarity in his eyes. He knew Guo would take in the blood and chi pill. He nodded, looking relieved, and went back to his office. Being the boss of a slaughterhouse meant he had plenty of his own problems to deal with. Guo got to work. His basic sword technique, Guo getting better, and his efficiency with the chickens Guo terrifying. Guo could strike exactly where Guo wanted. With zero wasted movement, Guo tossed the birds into the baskets, quietly, absorbing experience points with every kill. It wasn't boring. In fact, Guo was loving it. Guo lost track of time. As Guo finished off the last hen in the crate, a sudden flood of information slammed into his brain. Guo froze. His vision blurred and it felt like his consciousness, Guo being yanked into a different dimension. Guo stood in a void. All around him, shadowy figures were moving. Practicing the basic sword technique, Guo stared, trying to see who they were. The figures shifted and blurred, slowly becoming clearer, as if a thick fog Guo lifting. Just as Guo was about to see a face, the world snapped back. Xiao works over Xiao. An older woman, one of the cleaners, Guo shaking his shoulder. Guo blinked, his mind racing to catch up. Andy Wang, what happened? Guo called your name 3 times and you didn't move, she said, looking worried. Are you okay? You look like you were in a trance. Guo is fine. Guo lied, rubbing his face. Guo just didn't sleep well last night. Guo must have spaced out. Well, don't push yourself too hard. His old man is waiting for dinner, so Guo is heading out. Good night, Auntie Wang. Guo will leave in a minute. Once Guo gone, Guo looked at his hands. Time had moved. So fast. It felt like seconds in that space, but outside, the sun had set. Guo that his internal consciousness? And who Guo that figure? Him? Guo shook his head. Guo would figure it out later. Guo picked up his knife and gave it a casual flick. The movement Guo fluid, sharp, and effortless. Small success, rank, and swordplay. Guo worlds apart from just being a beginner. Guo wondered what great success or perfection would feel like. Guo checked his stats one last time before leaving. Name Guo. Level 5th level martial apprentice, experience 9,712. Techniques basic sword, small success, basic movement, beginner. Basic combat beginner. It only took 10,000 points to push his sword skills to great success. Guo was almost there. Guo cleaned up his station and practically sprinted home, eager to break through to the 6th level in private. As Guo approached his door, Guo saw a figure standing in the shadows. It was a woman. Guo slowed down, but Guo was not scared. Nobody caused trouble inside the city limits. Teacher Su? Guo asked as Guo got closer. It was Su Qing, his homeroom teacher. She let out a long sigh of relief. Guo thought Guo would found the wrong place again. None of your classmates knew where you lived. Guo has been wandering this neighborhood for an hour until a local lady pointed him here. Guo is sorry, Guo said, reaching for his keys. Look at your phone once in a while. Guo called you a dozen times. Guo left it inside today. Guo muttered. You want to come in? She followed him inside. His apartment Guo small and the appliances were ancient, but it Guo clean. Guo could see her relaxing as she sat on his faded sofa. Guo brought her a glass of water. It was all Guo had. Teacher, Guo know the exam is only 28 days away, Guo said before she could start. Guo haven't given up. She looked at his clothes, the cheapest, most basic fabric available, and her expression softened. She reached into her bag and pulled out 10 packets of body tempering powder, lining them up on the table. Guo does not make a huge salary, she said softly. But Guo want you to have these. Guo can only support you this much for now, Teacher Su said, her voice heavy with a mix of guilt and hope. The slaughterhouse is fine for a while, but you must go there less. Try to break through to the next minor realm. Teacher Su, really, you don't have to do this. Guo started, but she cut him off with a sharp wave of her hand. That's enough, she insisted. Guo has things to do. Don't bother seeing him out. Just get a good score on the exam. That's all the thanks Guo need. She stood up and left before Guo could say another word. Guo looked at the 10 packets of body tempering powders sitting on his table and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Guo, this what it felt like to have a benefactor? Having a teacher like this, Guo, a blessing Guo hadn't expected. Guo will give you a real surprise when the time comes, Guo whispered to the empty room. Guo did not waste any time. Guo grabbed the powder and began to absorb it directly. Experience points, plus 5,000. Guo felt a rush of energy. It was time to break through. As the power flowed into his veins, it felt like a dam, bursting, but without any of the pain. The energy surged through his limbs, meeting zero resistance. Just like that, Guo reached the 6th level of the martial apprentice realm. The medicinal properties of the blood-replenishing chi pill Guo would taken earlier were still lingering in his system. Instead of the usual post-breakthrough exhaustion, Guo felt a refreshing wave of clarity. First-grade pills were truly worth the price. They saved so much trouble. Guo made a mental note to thank Wang Yang again later. Guo owed that man a lot. Guo pulled up his status panel. Name Guo Realm. 6th level. Martial Apprentice. 101 SX 0. Cultivation. Northern Brightness Divine Art Max Techniques. Basic Gymnastics. Beginner. Basic Combat. Beginner. Basic Sword Technique. Small Success. Basic Movement. Beginner. Current XP. 7,014. Passive. Gain. 6 points per minute. Guo sat on the sofa, staring at the glowing numbers, lost in thought, until sleep finally took him. The next morning, Guo woke up early and headed to the breakfast stall downstairs. Boss, 3 meat buns, and a bowl of soy milk. Guo called out, 3 buns, 1 soy milk coming right up. The waiter shouted back. The place had an old-school vibe, like a bustling tavern from a historical drama. When the tray arrived, Guo noticed an extra boiled egg sitting there. Is this his? Guo asked. The boss's wife gave it to you. The waiter replied, pointing toward the counter. Guo looked over and saw the couple busy at the steamers. They caught his eye and gave him a warm knowing nod before returning to work. Guo had been coming to Ade's breakfast stall for a long time. Back when Guo was broke and living on plain steamed bread, they'd noticed. Now that Guo was a regular, they always tucked extra food into his order. A bun here, an egg there, and they never charged him for the extras. Guo finished his meal and paid the full price. Guo did not need to pinch pennies anymore. Guo had 3,000 yuan from his advance, which would last a normal person months. For a martial artist, Guo barely a drop in the bucket. But, with his system, Guo did not have to worry about starving. Guo was already at the 6th level. By tonight, Guo would hit the 7th. That Guo, the benchmark for the elite universities. With 27 days left, Guo might even break into the true martial artist realm. When Guo arrived at the Yanging slaughterhouse, Guo looked at the cages of chickens and ducks. To everyone else, they were livestock. To him, they were stacks of experience points. Swish swish. His dagger blurred. Guo struck 2 ducks in their cages with a single fluid motion. Guo stared at the blade in his hand, stunned. So, this is small success in sword technique. Yesterday, Guo had felt the smoothness. But today, Guo saw the power. The gap between beginner and small success Guo, a literal canyon. It made him wonder just how lethal great success would be. Because Guo would reach the 6th level, his speed and strength had increased across the board. Guo moved through the station like a whirlwind. Did Guo take the wrong meds today? One of the other workers whispered. Why is he looking at those birds like they killed his parents? He's killing them way too fast. Another grumbled. You only need 500 to hit the quota. He's overdoing it. Outside the slaughterhouse, a different kind of energy Guo brewing. Hello, viewers. A bright, cheerful girl chirped into a camera. A group of 3 beautiful girls stood near the entrance, shaded by a tree. Their live stream chat Guo exploding with heart emojis and fans arguing over who Guo, the true goddess. Guess where we are? The leader asked, smiling as the cameraman panned around to show the gritty industrial background of the slaughterhouse. Is that where the butcher works? A comment flashed on the screen. The girl laughed. Exactly. We're at the place where our school's famous butcher spends his time. The girls were the heads of the Hanghai Middle School news department. They were all 7th-level apprentices, but they knew they wouldn't hit the 8th level before the exams. Instead of training, they decided to chase the hottest trend on the school forums. Inside, Guo was completely oblivious. Guo was staring at his updated stats. Basic sword technique, small success, 398 1000. Current XP 9170. At this rate, Guo would hit great success in half a month. Guo checked the time, wiped the blood off his apron, and prepared to head home for a quick rest before the afternoon shift. Look, he's coming out, the girls shouted to their camera. Guo stepped into the sunlight, squinting, only to find a camera lens and 3 popular girls from his school blocking his path. Guo looked at the 3 girls standing in front of him. They were pretty enough, but their makeup Guo way too thick. One of them wore lipstick so bright it hurt to look at, and the girl next to her held her chin so high she looked like a pining peacock. Guo gave them a mental failing grade and frowned. Do Guo know you? Guo asked. The 3 of them rolled their eyes simultaneously. Of course you do, they said in unison. We're all from class 5. Oh, it's you guys, Guo said, rubbing his eyes. Sorry. Guo had some sand in his eyes. Guo did not see you clearly. One of the girls laughed. Guo cannot believe there's someone who doesn't recognize our school goddesses. Is he he's actually kind of handsome, another whispered. He just needs a better haircut. Guo noticed a guy nearby holding a phone, pointing it directly at him. Guo could not tell if Guo taking photos or filming a video. What do you want? Guo asked. The girl in the center stepped forward. Student Guo Wangshin, president of the school's news department. These are his vice presidents, Chunjing Ya and Lin Yu, and this is our cameraman, Li. After introducing her team to the small crowd gathering around us, she continued. We heard you've been working at a slaughterhouse lately. We'd like to interview you. Interview him? Guo repeated. Guo looked at them for a moment and a thought occurred to him. This is a serious matter, Guo said solemnly. Let him start over. Guo will come out again. The live stream comments were losing it. This guy is so extra. Someone typed, Guo love how serious he's taking this. Nearly 100,000 people were watching the stream. Now, Guo turned around and walked back toward the entrance of the Yonging slaughterhouse. Guo stood there for a second, straightened his clothes, and composed his face. The viewers watched with bated breath. Guo stepped out again, walking toward the news team with a cold expression. The girls smiled, ready to start their questions. Student Guo, get lost, Guo said. The word Guo cold and sharp. Guo did not wait for a reaction. Guo just walked right past them and kept going without looking back. Behind him, the girls froze like statues. Nobody had ever treated them like that, especially since they were famous internet goddesses. The chat went wild. Holy crap, that Guo legendary. When the girls finally snapped out of it, their faces turned ugly. Guo could tell they wanted to beat him up right then and there. But with 100,000 people watching, they had to maintain their image. Maybe we're just not pretty enough, Wang Xian said to the camera, her voice trembling with fake sadness. He doesn't care about our interview. It's so heartbreaking. Yeah. The others chimed in, looking dejected. They were pros at playing the victim, immediately turning the embarrassment into a way to make the audience hate him. Next time Guo see him, Guo will make him kneel and apologize to you, one fan commented. The girls had successfully deflected their shame and painted a target on his back. None of us realized that this tiny interaction Guo about to explode across the entire internet. The news team Guo famous now, and so Guo. In a mansion owned by the Lin family, a middle-aged man watched the video on his phone. Just a piece of trash, he muttered, his eyes full of malice. Guo will let you live a little longer. In another room, a young man's phone buzzed. Brother Kai, check this video Guo sent you. Your girl is being bullied. The man Kai immediately opened the link. He watched Wang Shai and looked sad in the video and felt his heartache. Then he saw him. Get lost, Guo said on the screen. Guaya, you're dead, Kai hissed. He picked up his phone and made a call. Find a chance to teach Guisha a lesson. Don't kill him. Just mess him up. Don't worry, Brother Kai. The exams are coming up, so we won't go too far. Later that day, his boss, Wang Yang, called him. Asha, did you offend someone? Offend someone? No, Guo said. Guo has been keeping his head down. Then what happened? Wang Yongyi hid. Guo just got calls from friends in the martial arts guild and the prosecutor's office. They told him to fire you immediately if Guo does not want trouble. Guo remembered the girls from the morning. Guo it because of those news department girls? Wang Yang let out a bitter laugh. Do you have any idea who is behind that department? They're all spoiled brats with powerful families. You told them to get lost on a live stream. You humiliated them. Are they really that petty? Guo asked to people with money and power. Face is everything. You didn't give them any. Guo understand. Guo said, feeling a weight in his chest. Guo won't cause you any more trouble, boss. Let's settle his wages. Guo still owe you for that 3,000 Guo borrowed. Forget the money, Wang Yang said hurriedly. It's not much. Look, another call is coming in. Just stay inside for a while, okay? The line went dead. What a mess, Guo muttered. Guo had taken a nap and woken up jobless. Guo thought about his options. Guo had planned to wait until Guo hit the 7th level and mastered his sword technique before heading into the wilderness. The wild Guo dangerous, but danger meant opportunity. If the city Guo closing its doors on him, Guo had to leave. Guo walked into a weapon shop. A long sword hung on the wall, looking magnificent. How much for this one? Guo asked the owner. Guo looked at the tag. 200,000 yuan. Guo looked at a meteor hammer. 300,000 yuan. A willow leaf saber. 200,000 yuan. His head started to spin. Guo could not afford any of this. Do you have anything cheaper? Guo asked. The owner didn't even look up. He just pointed toward a back room. Guo walked through the door into a larger, more crowded area. People glanced at him and then went back to their business. Can Guo help you? A young sales girl asked. Guo need a sword, Guo said. For practicing basic techniques. Follow him. She didn't seem to mind his ragged clothes. She led him to a rack of iron swords. This one is 12,000 yuan. Cheaper? Guo asked. This steel sword is 7,000. Even cheaper, Guo said, feeling his face heat up. As cheap as possible. Wait here, she said. She disappeared for a few minutes and returned holding a sword in a plain wooden scabbard. Guo could not even tell what it Guo made of. The sword looked plain, maybe even a little crude. This bronze sword is only 3,000 yuan, the girl said. It's the cheapest one we have. Guo will take it, Guo replied instantly. Guo walked out of the shop and let out a long, heavy sigh. Guo reached into his pocket and felt around. Guo had less than 500 yuan left to his name. If Guo did not get out of the city and kill some monsters for cash, Guo wouldn't even be able to afford food in a few days. Guo headed toward the city gates. The area Guo, a chaotic mess, smelling of sweat and adrenaline. It felt like a crowded marketplace, but instead of vegetables, people were trading lives. Heading out 100 miles to kill mad wolves. Anyone with guts, gathering medicinal herbs, need martial. Apprentice-level guards, hyping mad wolf pelts, buying three-eyed fox fur. Shouts echoed everywhere. Suddenly, a man with a bare muscular chest and dark brown trousers stepped into his path. He had a massive axe balanced casually on his shoulder. Hey, little brother, he said, his voice booming. Want to hunt some beast with us? Guo looked at him, then at the gate. No thanks, Guo said. Guo is waiting for a friend. He laughed, not taking offense. Ha ha. No worries. Maybe next time. He turned and walked back to his crew. One of his teammates leaned in, whispering loud, enough for him to hear. Captain, that kid is clearly just a 5th-level apprentice. If he'd said yes, he would have just been a drag on us. The captain shrugged. It doesn't matter. He said no, didn't he? Besides, doesn't he remind you of how we used to be? The teammate paused, then nodded. Yeah, just as broke. Guo watched them leave and muttered to himself. A team actually sounded nice. It was his first time leaving the city, and a guide would have been useful, but with his northern brightness divine art, Guo was destined to work alone. Guo could not risk anyone seeing how Guo really trained. Guo did not linger. Guo walked straight through the gates and out into the wild. Meanwhile, near his apartment, a group of thugs Guo loitering in the shadows. Boss, how much longer? One of them whined. Let's just rush in and beat him up already. The leader smacked the subordinate hard on the back of the head. Are you stupid? The exams are almost here. If we attack a student now, the authorities will hunt us down. You want to die? The subordinate rubbed his head and went quiet, staring intently at the entrance to his building. A few minutes later, another lackey ran up. Boss, Guo has good news and bad news. Which one first? Give him the bad news. The leader growled. Guo isn't home. We've been waiting for nothing. And the good news. We don't have to keep watching the door. The leader's face went dark. He smacked the kid again. Boss, why'd you hit him? Guo is just reporting. Because Guo felt like it. The leader snapped. Keep talking and Guo will do it again. The kid shut his mouth and scurried a few feet away. Where is he? The leader asked. Reliable sources say he went outside the city. The wild? Which gate? The lackey didn't hesitate this time. North gate? The leader narrowed his eyes. Fine. We're going to the north gate. We'll wait for him to come back. Guo had no idea Guo was being hunted. Guo was too busy staring at his first real target. A few meters ahead of him, Guo, a beast with a thick white body and short stubby legs. It had long ears like fans and a massive snout. But the most striking feature were the two curved deadly tusks protruding from its mouth. It was a first-tier tusk boar. Guo racked his brain for the details Guo had studied. The tusks were the most valuable part. They could be ground into powder for blacksmithing or alchemy. Its strength Guo around the 5th level of a martial apprentice. But because it Guo a beast, its raw power Guo closer to a 7th level human. You're the one, Guo whispered. If the boar knew Guo was choosing it for his first time, it probably wouldn't have been honored. Guo crouched low, moving through the tall grass. His heart hammered against his ribs. Guo crept closer, 1 inch at a time. The boar suddenly lifted its head, sniffing the air. Guo froze. His breath hitched. Luckily, the brush Guo high, but enough to hide him. After a tense moment, the beast lowered its head again. Guo took another step. Snap. A dry branch broke under his boot. The sound Guo like a gunshot in the quiet clearing. The tusk boars bolted upright. It turned and locked eyes with him. It hadn't realized Guo was so close. When it saw the bronze sword in his hand, it didn't just get scared. It got angry. It recognized the weapon. This Guo, the thing that killed its kind and stole their tusks. It pawed the ground with its front hoof, lowered its head, and charged. Holy crap, Guo yelled. The boar Guo, a white blur of muscle and rage. Guo panicked for a split second, then threw himself into a desperate roll. The boar thundered past him, the smell of its foul breath and wild musk hitting him like a physical wall. Guo scrambled to his feet and drew his sword. Shing! The boar turned, its eyes red with fury. It didn't want to run. It wanted him dead. It lunged again, but this time it leaped into the air, aiming those massive tusks straight at his chest. Guo did not think. Guo just swung. His bronze sword slammed into its tusks with a metallic clang. The impact sent a shockwave up his arms. We both flew backward from the force. The boar skidded. Back to him. Guo flew back 4. Guo stood up, his right hand trembling from the vibration. When you face a beast, do not panic. His instructor's voice echoed in his head. Asterisk. Stay calm. Use your environment. Find the opening. Kill in 1 strike. Asterisk. Guo gripped the sword tighter. The boar Guo watching him now, hesitant. That strike to its tusks had hurt it, and Guo could see the confusion in its eyes. Usually, humans ran. This human bit back. The pain only made it angrier. It wasn't going to flee. This Guo a fight to the death. If Guo did not kill this beast, Guo wouldn't be able to sleep tonight. The boar seemed to think the same thing. It stared at him, its small eyes assessing its prey. It realized Guo was just a human. It thought it could win. It thought this Guo, its chance for revenge. Guo stood perfectly still. To the boar, Guo probably looked frozen in fear. It pawed the ground twice, let out a deafening roar, and charged. This time, it Guo faster, much faster. The roar snapped him out of his daze. The beast covered the distance in a heartbeat. When it Guo only 2 m away, it kicked off with its front hooves and launched itself into the air. It was a massive, hairy projectile aimed straight at his throat. Guo did not panic. Guo watched it glide closer. Every muscle in its body tensed for the kill. Just as it Guo about to collide with him, Guo took one precise step back. The boar whistled past his chest, missing him by an inch. Guo did not waste the opening. Guo brought his bronze sword down in a heavy vertical cleave. The blade sank into the boar's skull without a hint of resistance. The beast hit the ground, gave one violent shudder, and went still. It was dead. Moments ago, it had been stronger than him. Now it Guo, just a carcass. Guo could see the confusion in its glazed eyes as the life faded out. It couldn't understand how a weak human had ended it so easily. It stared at him, even in death, as if trying to kill him with its gaze. Guo looked down at the body inside. "Don't blame him, brother pig," Guo muttered. "Guo hope you have a better life, next time. Maybe be a pet pig or something." Then a thought struck him. Guo checked the clearing to make sure Guo was alone. No one Guo watching. Guo knelt down and placed his hand on the boar's head. "Northern brightness, divine art," Guo whispered. Guo activated the technique. The boar's body began to shrivel and shrink before his eyes. Its blood and flesh were being converted directly into pure energy. Within seconds, all that Guo left Guo a hollowed-out hide. Experience points plus 5,000. 5,000 points. His heart skipped a beat. This Guo dangerous, sure, but it Guo incredibly fast. Killing chickens and ducks at the slaughterhouse felt like a joke compared to this. Guo looked at the leftover skin on the ground and slapped his forehead. Damn, it. Guo should have taken the tusks off first. Those were worth a lot of money. Whatever. At least Guo has the hide. It should still fetch a decent price. The sky Guo, getting dark. Nighttime Guo when the real monsters came out to play. And Guo did not want to be stuck in the wilderness after sunset. Guo rolled up the boar's skin, tucked it under his arm, and started the long trek back to the city. By the time Guo reached the bustling market inside the city gates, the torches were lit. The place Guo alive with shouts, freshly made hemistic powder, detoxification pills here, buying monster cores and materials. Hunters and gatherers were flooding back from the outskirts, desperate to turn their loot into hard cash. Shopkeepers and scouts from big firms were everywhere, hunting for bargains. Guo scanned the stalls and stopped at one buying raw materials. "Boss," Guo said, leaning over the counter. "Do you take boar hides?" The young guy behind the stall looked up. He saw the bundle in his hand and nodded. "Yeah, we take him. Don't worry. There are plenty of buyers here, but Guo will give you a fair shake." "What's the price?" Guo asked. "Usually between 1,000 and 5,000, he said, eyeing him. Guo looked young, and he probably thought Guo was a rookie. "That's the market rate. We're in this for the long term, so we don't cheat people." Guo did not say anything. Guo just unrolled the hide and laid it out on his table. The young man froze. The skin, Guo perfect. Not a single scratch or tear except for the clean kill strike at the head. "This is so complete," he whispered. "Kid, Guo will give you 5,000 for it." Someone shouted from a neighboring stall. "Guo will give you 5,500. Another chimed in. The collectors were swarming now. They'd ignored him when Guo walked up, but a high-quality hide like this Guo, rare. 10,000. The young guy at the stall barked, silencing the others. "Old Shun, that's not right." One of the others complained. "That skin is worth 8,000 max. You're overpaying." Guo has got the cash. Shin replied with a smirk. "If you can beat it, go ahead. Otherwise, back off." The other buyers grumbled and retreated to their stalls. 10,000 Guo, a massive overbid. 10,000? Guo asked, genuinely surprised. "Guo thought you said 5. Guo the limit." Shin laughed. "Normally hunters tear the skin or ruin it during the fight. A standard hide goes for 5. Yours is pristine. It's worth the premium. You selling?" "Yeah," Guo said. "Name's Chun. Guo is here every day. If you get more stuff like this, bring it to him. Guo will always give you the top rate." He turned to his assistant. "Shaolin, pack this up." Then he looked at him. "Bank transfer." Guo hesitated. Bank transfer. Guo was so poor Guo did not even have a bank account. The most money Guo would ever held at once. "Guo 5,000. Can you do cash?" Guo asked. Shun looked at his worn-out clothes and seemed to understand. He nodded, reached into a drawer, and pulled out a thick stack of bills. He handed them over. You should get a card, kid. Carrying this much cash isn't safe these days. Thanks, Guo said, pocketing the money. Guo will look into it. Guo walked away feeling the weight of the cash in his pocket. But as Guo moved through the crowd, Guo did not notice the eyes following him. Boss, look, isn't that the Guo kid? A thin lackey whispered, pointing a finger. A man in a leather jacket pulled out his phone, checked a photo, and grinned. That's him, no doubt. Boss, look. He just took a huge stack of cash from that stall. The leader's eyes turned greedy. Move. We'll head to his place and wait. We'll beat him down. Take the money. And then collect the reward from Brother Long. It's a double payday. But boss, what if we can't beat him? The leader cuffed him over the head. Are you stupid? He's only at the 3rd level of the apprentice realm. Guo is at the 5th level. Plus there's 4 of you at the 3rd level. He's one guy. What's he going to do? Oh, right. Yeah. Guo had no idea they were heading for his home. Guo was not in a rush to get back yet. Guo had heard someone selling medical supplies earlier. This Guo, his first time in the wild. And Guo would realized how unprepared Guo was. If Guo was going to do this regularly, Guo needed gear. Guo found the stall again. How much for the high stick powder and detox pills? 2,000 a pack for the powder, the vendor said. The pills are 10,000 a bottle, 10 pills per bottle. Guo looked at the dark pills on the table. Curious, what are these? Those are fasting pills, the vendor explained. Take 3 a day, and you won't feel a single hunger pang. A bottle has 21 pills for 1,500 bucks. He then pointed to a different set. These are vitality pills. They restore your physical strength, 5,000 per pill. Guo listened as he went through the inventory, but his heart sank. Guo could not afford most of this stuff. After doing the math, Guo hesitated, then made his move. Guo bought 2 packs of high stick powder and 4 bottles of fasting pills. Just like that, the money Guo had made from the boar tusks and fur Guo gone. The clerk counted his 10,000 yuan and handed over the goods. Here you go, kid. 2 packs of powder for bottles of pills. Guo will throw in this small waste bag for free. What's the difference between these fasting pills and the high-end ones? Guo asked the effect. He shrugged. The real ones only require 1 pill a day to keep you full. Plus, these cheap ones taste like garbage. Guo wanted to ask more, but Guo had enough to worry about. Guo headed home. As Guo reached his door and pulled out his keys, Guo froze. His hand hovered over the lock. Guo heard muffled voices coming from inside his apartment. Boss, when is this kid coming back? Guo is getting sleepy. Yeah, and this place is a dump. He doesn't even have a soda in the fridge. Guo listened for a moment, his pulse steady. From their conversation, Guo realized they were here to jump him. They didn't sound like pros. The leader Guo only at the 5th level of the apprentice realm, and the others were even lower. Guo let out a quiet breath of relief. Guo was at the 6th level now, and his basic sword technique had reached small success. Dealing with a few thugs wasn't going to be a problem. Guo shoved the key in, twisted the lock, and kicked the door open. His apartment Guo a mess. 4 guys were lounging on his sofa, looking like they owned the place. When they saw him, they jumped up, with greedy grins. Guo stepped inside and used the scabbard of his sword to hook the door shut behind him. Click. Who are you? Guo asked, his voice cold. And what are you doing in his house? Boss, look at this kid. One of the lackeys laughed. Is he stupid? He locked himself in with us. Hand over the money, kid. The leader sneered. You've kept us waiting long enough. They started closing in, laughing. Guo did not even draw his blade. Guo kept the bronze sword in its sheath and swung it like a bat. Whack! The first, thirdly thug didn't even see it coming. He flew backward, slamming into the guy behind him. They both hit the floor, groaning and clutching their ribs. Boss, help us. It hurts. The leader's face twisted in rage. You little brat, you're asking for it. In his eyes, Guo was still just a turtle weakling who got lucky with a surprise attack. He signaled to his remaining 2 men. They pulled out jag daggers with a sharp shank sound. Drop the sword. The leader growled. Guo stood his ground, expressionless. He took his silence for fear. He nodded to his men, and they lunged at him, blades flashing. These guys weren't like the first 2. They were experienced street fighters. They weren't just looking to bruise him. They were going for blood. Guo watched them move. It felt slow. Guo swung the sheathed bronze sword again, putting his full strength behind it this time. Crack, crack. The daggers clattered to the floor. Both men were sent, flying back to where they started, collapsing in a heap. The leader crawled backward, his voice trembling. Wait, you're not at the third level? What are you? Guo walked toward them, his shadow looming over the group. Who told you Guo was third level? Panic set in. Their boss, a fifth-level fighter, had been swatted away like a fly. Let us go, the leader yelled, trying to regain some bravado. Pay for our medical bills, or Brother Long will never let this go. Guo put on a mock look of terror. Oh no, Guo was so scared. The leader didn't see the glint in his eyes. He thought Guo was actually folding. Good. Now help us up. And Guo silenced him with a kick to the gut that sent him face first into the floor. Who is Brother Long? Guo asked. And why did he send you? Let us go, you bastard. Brother Long knows we're here. If we don't return, you're dead. Guo looked at them, bored. If Guo let you go, you'll just bring more people. If Guo does not. Guo paused, leaning in. Guo does not have time to play games. Tell him about Brother Long. They didn't answer. They just lay there moaning, ignoring him. His patience snapped. Fine, don't talk. Guo knelt down and placed his hand on one of the lackeys' heads. Guo felt the northern brightness, divine art stir within him. Guo began to circulate the technique, and the air in the room seemed to turn cold. The man beneath his hand began to thrash. Boss, save him. What's happening? Save him. The leader watched in pure, unadulterated horror. A warm liquid began to seep through his pants as he lost control of his bladder. Before his eyes, his men began to wither. Their flesh seemed to melt away, their bodies shrinking into nothing but skin and bone. Their screams grew weak, then turned into rasps, and finally faded into silence. Within moments, the men were gone. All that remained were piles of warm clothes on the floor. System experience points plus 9,000. Guo turned his gaze to the leader. Speak. Guo does not know. He shrieked, his mind snapping. Guo only know. Brother Long told us to teach you a lesson. Demon, you're a demon. Stay away from him. He Guo hysterical, rambling nonsense. Guo realized. Guo was not going to get anything more out of him. He Guo broken. Guo placed his hand on his head. The northern brightness divine art surged again. A few seconds later, another pile of clothes hit the floor. System experience points plus 5,000. Guo did not feel like a hero. As the leader of the thugs dissolved into nothingness, Guo could not hold it back anymore. Guo bolted for the bathroom and collapsed over the toilet, retching until his stomach burnt. It was horrific. Dissecting a corpse in a lab, Guo, one thing, but watching a living man turn into a hollow shell of skin and bone, right in front of him, Guo, something else entirely. The northern brightness divine art Guo efficient, but it Guo ugly. Guo stayed there, until Guo was coughing up bitter bile, waiting for the nausea to fade. Once Guo could breathe again, Guo reached into his small hip bag and pulled out a tailbone pill. It smelled like rotting trash and tasted even worse. Sour, pungent, and foul. Guo gagged as Guo swallowed it, but the effect Guo instant. The hollow hunger in his gut vanished, and his mind finally cleared. Guo walked back into the living room. Piles of clothes lay scattered across the floor where the men had been. Guo looked at the fabric. The quality Guo definitely better than the rags Guo was wearing. But their Guo, no way Guo was touching anything that belonged to them. Guo spent the next hour cleaning. Guo threw the discarded clothes and the broken bits of his furniture into the trash bins outside. When Guo finished, the apartment looked decent again. At least the thugs left him a parting gift. Guo picked up the leader's smartphone from the floor. It was sleek, expensive, and miles ahead of his old junker. Suddenly, the phone vibrated. A name flashed on the screen. Brother Long. Guo hesitated, then swiped to answer. Guo did not say a word. Xiaojiang. How'd it go? A voice asked. When Guo did not respond, the tone shifted. Who is this? Xiaojiang? What happened to you? Didn't you send them to find him? Guo asked coldly. There Guo was sharp silence on the other end. You're just a level 3 martial apprentice. How could a broke kid like you beat Xiaojiang and his crew? Believe it or not, they're gone. Guo said, just tell him who paid you to come after him. The man laughed. a dry, dangerous sound. So, you're really Guo. Guo did not think you'd be hiding this deep, planning to shock everyone at the Big Five exams. Are you? Guo asked you a question. Guo started, but the line went dead. Guo tried calling back, but it went straight to voicemail. He had blocked him. Guo did not waste any more time. Guo popped the SIM card out, snapped it, and tossed it in the trash. Guo put his own card in the new phone and sat down on the sofa. Guo checked his status panel. Realm level: 6 martial apprentice, 1 UNESCO 0 cultivation, northern brightness, divine art max level skills. Basic body techniques. Level 18, basic combat 15 100 0 basic sword. Small success, basic movement 35,100 0. Experience points 32 680. His widened. His experience points had skyrocketed. Guo also noticed his basic movement skill had jumped from 5 points to 35 points just from that brief scuffle. His instructor Guo right. Real combat Guo the fastest way to grow. Guo leaned back, thinking about his fight with the tusk boar earlier that day. Guo had been terrified. Even though Guo had died once in his past life, the sight of a monster charging at him had frozen his blood. At level 6, Guo should have been stronger, but the boar's raw power Guo insane. Guo was lucky to be alive. But then Guo looked at his experience points again. 3,286. It was still ticking up by 6 points every minute. It was a beautiful sight. Guo did not hesitate. Guo dumped his points into his cultivation. Guo felt a massive surge of heat explode in his chest. His cells screamed as they devoured the energy, expanding and hardening. Guo felt a thin barrier in. His mind snapped like a piece of paper. System breakthrough level 7. Martial apprentice reached. There. Guo, no bottleneck or struggle. It was smooth and instant. Guo wondered if it would be this easy when Guo tried to become a true martial artist. But the breakthrough came with a price. His stomach growled with a ferocity that made him wise. Guo ate another tailbone pill, but the hunger only barely subsided. Guo realized then that every time Guo broke through, his body needed massive amounts of physical energy to stabilize. The system gave him the progress, but it couldn't create matter out of thin air. Martial arts really, Guo, a rich man's game. Without money for high-grade supplements, Guo would eventually starve himself to death just by leveling up. Guo shook the thought away. Guo still had 17,041 experience points left. Guo was not going to hoard them. Strength Guo the only thing that mattered for the exams. Guo focused on his basic sword technique and basic movement, pouring the remaining points into them. A flood of memories and muscle reflexes slammed into his brain. It felt like Guo was spending years in a training hall, swinging a blade and dodging shadows until the movements became as natural as breathing. The information for his basic sword technique and basic movement flooded into his mind. It felt like Guo had always known these moves. Suddenly, his consciousness shifted just like it had back at the slaughterhouse. Guo was back in that mysterious space. Shadowy figures were everywhere. Some were practicing sword forms. Others were moving with impossible speed. Guo focused his eyes, staring hard at one of the figures practicing the sword. It was clearer than before, though still a bit blurry. There Guo, something strangely familiar about the way it moved. The next second, his consciousness snapped back into his body, his head throbbed. Guo felt a wave of dizziness so intense Guo could barely stand. It was the mental tax for receiving so much information and entering that space. Guo made a mental note to be careful in the future. If Guo got stuck in that trance during a fight, Guo would be a sitting duck. The dizziness got worse. His vision blurred and his legs felt like lead. Guo collapsed onto his sofa and fell into a deep, heavy sleep. When Guo woke up the next morning, Guo checked his stats immediately. Guo whistled. His sword technique had reached the Grandmaster level, and his movement Guo at small success. But seeing that Guo needed 100,000 points to level up his sword skill again made his jaw drop. That Guo a massive number. It took less than half that to level up his entire cultivation realm. Guo washed up in the bathroom and looked in the mirror. His hair Guo a mess, long and wild. Guo needed a haircut, but Guo did not want to spend the money. Guo found a piece of string and tied it back into a makeshift ponytail. It looked like a ridiculous butterfly knot, but Guo did not care. Actually, Guo is pretty handsome, Guo muttered. Even in his coarse, cheap clothes. The change in hairstyle made him look sharper, more like a martial artist and less like a beggar. Guo grabbed his things and headed out. Guo needed to go to the bank, carrying a wad of cash in this city. Guo just asking for trouble. Guo Xiao? A voice called out. Guo turned and saw his homeroom teacher, Su Qing, standing next to her. Guo, a girl who looked about his age. Hello, Teacher Su, Guo said. Call him Sister Qing. She corrected him with a smile. When we're outside of school, Guo prefer it. Right. Sorry, teacher. She sighed and shook her head. Where are you heading? The bank. Guo told her honestly. Guo has got too much cash on him. Guo is worried someone might try to rob him. The girl next to her let out a sudden snort of laughter. She looked at his ragged clothes and then at his face, clearly thinking that no thief would ever bother with someone who looked as poor as him. Suin Suching snapped, giving the girl a stern look. So, her name, Guo Suin. She seemed a bit airhead. Guo is sorry, sister, Suin whispered, realizing she'd been rude. Su Qing turned back to him looking embarrassed. Guo is sorry, Guo. This is his younger sister, Su Lin. She didn't mean anything by it. It's fine, Guo said. Guo should get going before the bank gets crowded. Suching checked her watch. It was almost 9. You're right. Go get that sorted. Then head home and focus on your training. Guo is expecting great things from you at Big 5 exams. Guo nodded. Guo will do his best. Before Guo could finish his sentence, Su and Guo already dragging her sister away. They seemed to be in a massive rush. Guo watched them go, wondering why a teacher Guo always so frantic. Guo, that your student? Guo heard Suin asked as they walked away. Yes, Suing replied. From his clothes? Guo bet he's level 3 at most, Suin said confidently. Around there, Suing. He's a good kid, just from a poor family. If he had better resources, he'd be much higher. No way, Su Lin bragged. Even if he were level 9, Guo would still beat him. Guo is going to be the top scorer in the national exams this year. Don't be so arrogant, Suching warned. There are already 2 students in class. One who hit level 9. You know them, Yiluo and Yan. What? How are they so fast? If you spent less time playing and more time practicing, you'd be there, too. Guo did not hear the rest of their conversation. If Guo had, Guo would have been shocked to learn that the airhead girl Guo actually a level 8 martial apprentice. Getting a bank card, in this world, turned out to be a nightmare. Guo thought it would take 10 minutes, but they required iris scans and fingerprinting for all 10 fingers. When Guo jokingly asked if they needed his toe prints, too, the clerk deadpanned and told him it Guo recommended if Guo wanted extra security. Guo shut up after that. By the time Guo left the bank, Guo nearly noon. Guo checked his experience points. 11,526. Guo headed toward the north city gate of Hanghai City. Guo had to walk because the bank fees had eaten up almost all the cash Guo had left. Guo only had about 20 bucks to his name. His destination, Guo, the same area where Guo would fought the tusk boar yesterday. Guo would heard rumors at the market that the tusk boar's territory Guo usually avoided by other martial artists. Even though they were technically level 5 monsters, their strength Guo closer to level 7. Their tusks didn't sell for much, and they usually hunted in pairs. Meeting a lone one, like Guo did yesterday, Guo rare. Most Heil apprentices didn't think they were worth the effort. But for him, Guo did not care about the money. Guo needed the experience points. And if no one else wanted to hunt them, that just meant more for him. Guo needed a place where no one would bother him. It wasn't about the money, it Guo about the privacy. Guo needed a quiet spot to use his northern brightness divine art and suck up experience points without drawing unwanted attention. If anyone saw what Guo was doing, it would mean nothing but trouble. Guo had already made up his mind yesterday until the exam started. Guo was going to camp out in the Tuskboar territory. As Guo walked along the main road outside the city, cars occasionally sped past him. Guo watched them with a hint of envy. To own a car in this world, you had to be at least at the martialist realm. Guo wondered when Guo would finally reach that level. Higher realms meant killing higher-level monsters, which meant even more experience points. Guo shook his head, clearing the thoughts. Now wasn't the time for daydreaming. Guo had to take this one step at a time. His first small goal, break through to the martialist realm. Guo eventually found the spot. The grass that had been trampled and destroyed during his fight yesterday had already grown back. The spiritual energy in the air really did change everything. even the growth. Cycles of plants. Guo started wandering around looking for his targets. Guo was not the same person Guo was yesterday. His cultivation had hit the 5th level. His basic sword technique had reached Grandmaster status. And even his movement technique had improved to small success. His strength, Guo growing by leaps and bounds every single day. Guo was itching for a fight to test his new limits. Speak of the devil. Right ahead of him, 2 tusk boars were lounging on the ground. A sudden surge of playfulness hit him. Guo struck a cocky pose and shouted at them, "Hey, come over here. Come and get him." Guo expected them to jump up and charge. Instead, they just stayed there looking at him with what Guo could only describe as pure disdain. Guo swear Guo could see it in their eyes. They thought Guo was an idiot. Being mocked by 2 pigs, Guo not on his schedule for today. Guo grabbed a few pebbles from the ground and hurled them with everything Guo had. Flack flack. His aim Guo a bit off, but Guo managed to hit them both. That did the trick. They squealed in anger and scrambled to their feet. "That's more like it," Guo muttered, satisfied. Guo gripped the hilt of his bronze sword and charged first. Seeing him rush them only made them more furious. They dug their front hooves into the dirt and lunged toward him. Guo let out a loud shout as they closed the gap. "Bring it on." The scene felt a bit ridiculous, like something out of a cheesy anime. But luckily, no one Guo around to see it. Guo unleashed his basic sword technique. Guo lunged, slashed, and swept his blade in a blur of motion. Within seconds, tiny cuts began appearing all over the boar's thick hides. Guo was not in a hurry to kill them. Guo was using them as live practice for his newly mastered sword forms. Every time they tried to gore him, Guo slipped away effortlessly. His improved movement technique, Guo incredible. Yesterday, dodging 2 of them would have been a desperate struggle. Today, Guo was practically playing with them. Guo felt lighter, more agile. His speed had only increased by maybe 30, but the fluidity made it feel like Guo was on a completely different level. After getting a feel for his new power, Guo looked at the 2 bleeding boars. Time to wrap this up. Guo finished them off quickly and moved in. Guo had to touch them with his hands to trigger the Northern Brightness divine art. It wasn't as convenient as the real version from the stories, but it worked. Experience points plus 10-0. Guo did not even bother with the tusks or the hides this time. Carrying that heavy stuff back to sell for a bit of cash wasn't worth the time. Experience Guo his only priority. Guo cleaned his blade and started looking for the next group. "Little friend, this is no place for someone like you." The voice came out of nowhere, echoing around him. Guo spun around, scanning the trees, but saw no one. Guo thought Guo was hallucinating for a second until the voice spoke again. Up here, Guo looked up. An old man Guo standing on a tree branch, stroking his long beard, and looking down at him. To him, Guo probably looked like a typical high school kid. 5th-level martial apprentice, cheap clothes, clearly from a poor family. In this world, someone like him shouldn't have had high-level techniques or the gear to survive out here alone. "Why can't Guo be here?" Guo asked. "What makes you think you can be here?" The old man countered. "His strength," Guo said simply. The old man laughed, looking at him with an amused expression based on your 5th-level cultivation. Guo could tell he wasn't a threat. If he wanted him dead, he could have killed him before Guo even knew he Guo there. Guo stayed calm and the sword in his hand. He looked at his weapon. A cheap nick bronze blade made by some low-level apprentice. That piece of scrap metal. That depends on whose hand it's in, Guo replied. In his hand, it's a legendary blade. The old man went silent. He didn't know how to argue with that. He probably hated the world is his attitude, but he couldn't deny the conviction in his voice. If social martial artists can hunt beasts at the 5th level, why can't Guo? Guo added, a martial artist should be self-reliant and relentless. Well said. The old man sighed, looking genuinely moved. He seemed to be lost in a memory of 500 years ago when the beasts first arrived and humanity had to fight for every inch of ground. Back then, everyone Guo ordinary and they still fought. He looked at him and then seemed to drift off into deep thought. While he Guo reminiscing, Guo was secretly panicking. Is he deciding how to kill him? Should Guo run? Should Guo play dead? His mind Guo racing, with exit strategies. The old man snapped out of his trance and saw the look on his face. He stopped stroking his beard and huffed. Do Guo look like some bloodthirsty monster too? You? Infuriating kid. He reached into his robe, pulled out a manual, and tossed it down. It landed right at his feet. By the time Guo looked back up, Guo, gone. Guo stood there, jaw dropped, staring at the empty air. The old man hadn't just walked away. He had literally taken flight. He soared into the sky and vanished. Guo looked down at the manual he had tossed at his feet. 3 words were written on the cover. Drawing sword technique. Looking at those words, his mind drifted to a certain legendary character from his past life. You know the one. The lower he held his head, the stronger he became. Guo shook the thought away. Guo needed to focus on reality. Guo tucked the manual into his robe and started heading back toward the city. This wasn't the place to start reading. If Guo got too absorbed in the technique and a beast ambushed him, Guo would be dead before Guo could turn the page. Back in the bustling streets of Hanghai City, Guo stopped by a familiar stall. The young clerk, Shaolin, recognized him and waved. "Hey, Shaolin," Guo said. "You're pretty young. Why are you working here instead of studying?" "Don't laugh at him, brother," he said with a sheepish grin. "His family is poor. Luckily, Bashan took him in. Guo come here to help out whenever Guo has free time." His urgency to get home faded a bit. Guo felt a kinship with him. Guo pulled out his loot. "Help him see how much these are worth." Shaolin skillfully inspected the 2 tusker boar pelts Guo had harvested. The sword punctures are a bit numerous on these 2, but the overall integrity is good. "We can give you 3,000 yuan deal." Guo said. Guo did not care about haggling. Killing those boars had been effortless anyway. "Cash?" he asked, reaching for a drawer. "Bank transfer this time?" Guo replied. Shaolin stopped and grabbed a device from the counter. He aimed it at his face. A screen flickered instantly, pulling up his banking information. It was his first time seeing this tech in person. Guo checked the details carefully. Everything Guo correct. "The model is a bit old, but it's accurate," Shaolin explained. Guo heard the newest scanners can read your info just by looking at you from a distance. "High-tech stuff." "That's convenient," Guo muttered. "All right, the money is sent. You should get a notification any second." Just as he finished speaking, his phone vibrated in his bag. Guo checked it. The text. "Guo there." The transfer. Guo instant. After chatting with Shaolin for a bit longer to learn about other gadgets, Guo finally headed home. The moment Guo hit the sofa, Guo pulled out the drawing sword technique. Guo flipped through the pages, soaking in every word. As Guo finished the last page, his vision blurred. His consciousness. Guo pulled back into that mysterious gray space. "What's happening?" Guo whispered. Guo can enter this place just by reading a manual. Shadowy figures appeared around him. They weren't fighting monsters. They were practicing the technique Guo had just read. Guo did not focus on their faces this time. Guo watched their hands. The movements were simple. Draw sheath. Draw sheath. As time passed in that void, the figures moved faster and faster. Eventually, the blade, leaving the scabbard and returning to it, happened in a single heartbeat. The sword Guo out. It struck, and it Guo back before the eye could even register the steel. His mind snapped. Back to his living room. Guo pulled up his attribute panel. Under his skills, a new entry had appeared, drawing sword technique. It was already at the small success stage. Guo was stunned. How? Maybe at Guo because his basic sword technique Guo already at Grandmaster level. Or maybe this technique Guo just inherently simple. Either way, Guo did not complain. Guo stood up in the middle of the living room and gripped the hilt of his bronze sword. Guo aimed at a tiny protrusion on the wall. Shing. The small piece of the wall fell to the floor. His sword Guo already back in its scabbard. Guo hadn't even seen his own hand move. The power Guo one thing, but the speed, it Guo several times faster than before. Guo checked his experience points. Guo had 2,326 points saved up. Guo did not hesitate. Guo dumped them all. Guo pushed his basic movement and drawing sword technique both to Grandmaster level. Guo even bumped his basic combat to small success. Whatever Guo left, Guo poured into his cultivation level. Suddenly, a massive flood of information crashed into his brain. It felt like a tidal wave hitting a brick wall. Asterisk crap. Guo forgot how much this hurts. Asterisk Guo thought. His mind Guo dragged back into the mysterious space, but Guo was too exhausted to watch the shadows. His head felt like it. Guo filled with lead. Guo needed to sleep. Guo stayed in that hazy state for what felt like forever until his consciousness finally returned to his body. Guo collapsed on the sofa and blacked out. When Guo finally opened his eyes, the clock told him 2 days had passed. Guo had slept for 48 hours straight. That, Guo reckless. Guo groaned, rubbing his temples. Guo wonder if the Big Five schools have techniques to increase mental strength. Guo is going to need them. Guo pulled up his stats one more time. Name Guo. Level 7th level. Martial apprentice. Cultivation Northern Brightness Divine Art Max. Skills Drawing Sword Technique. Grandmaster Basic Movement. Grandmaster Basic Sword. Grandmaster Experience 13,447 points generated per minute. Guo took a deep breath with this setup. Who in Hanghai High School could possibly stop him? Guo was confident that no student in his school Guo is match. As for the rest of the city, Guo stayed humble. Their Guo always a bigger fish. Later that day, Guo stood over the carcasses of 3 tusker boars in the wild. Guo hadn't even broken a sweat. Guo has really become this strong, Guo muttered. One draw of his sword had instantly killed the first boar. His only regret Guo that his cultivation level wasn't high enough to unleash the full range of the strike. Even though the second boar Guo close, it only took a superficial wound. But his movement speed with Grandmaster level footwork, Guo was 60 faster than before. At the martial apprentice realm, Guo was the undisputed king. Guo did not linger to gloat. Guo absorbed the experience from the 3 boars, another 15,000 points, and pushed deeper into the wilds. Guo knew his limits now. In this realm, Guo was invincible. Guo did not have to hold back anymore. Before, Guo was cautious, measuring every step. But now, as long as Guo did not run into a level 2 demon beast, Guo was the apex predator in these woods. Guo felt sharp. Guo felt unstoppable. About 500 m away, a young girl Guo locked in a desperate struggle with a tusker boar. Her clothes were torn and her face Guo caked with dust and sweat. She looked pathetic. A group of people stood nearby, watching her every move. One woman, an archer, had her bow drawn and aimed straight at the beast. She Guo the safety net, ready to kill the boar the second the girl's life. Guo truly in danger. Is his dear little sister skipped breakfast? A man in the group shouted, his voice dripping with sarcasm. It's just a level 1 grade 5 beast. Why do you look like a drown rat? The girl's eyes flared with rage. She clearly wanted to drop the boar and punch him instead. Yin Shan, knock it off. A rugged, burly man said, glancing at the girl. That's your sister. Don't you care about her? She's at the 8th level of the martial apprentice realm. Yin Shan scoffed. If she struggles this much against a grade 5 beast, she deserves a lecture. Guo was being easy on her. The burly man, the leader of the group, watched the fight with a critical eye. It's her first time facing a demon beast. This performance is actually quite good. Before Yin Shan could argue, the leader raised a hand. The fight is over. Xiaojing put the bow away. The archer obeyed. On the field, the tusker boar didn't die from a wound. It collapsed from pure exhaustion. It literally couldn't move another inch. Seeing her chance, the girl lunged forward and drove her blade deep into the beast's skull. She slumped onto the dirt, gasping for air, looking completely unrefined. But she Guo smiling. Killing her first beast Guo a milestone worth celebrating. As the group approached her, Yin Shan couldn't help himself. Killing a boar by making it run until its heart stops. That's a rare talent, sister. The girl, Yini, just rolled her eyes. She had been fighting that thing for 2 hours. She didn't have the energy to argue. Don't listen to your brother, Xiaojing the archer said as she helped her up. He Guo sweating bullets watching. You. Shut up. Yin snapped. The burly leader, old Lu looked at Yin Xioi. That's enough for today. Take tomorrow off to reflect on what you learned. Well, head out again the day after. Thanks, Uncle Lu. She chirped. Old Lu's stern face crumbled instantly. Guo told you. Call him Big Brother Lu. Guo is not that old. The group burst into laughter. After a moment, Xiaojing supported the exhausted Yin Shui, and they began their trek back. Suddenly, old Lu stopped. He signaled for silence. Someone's ahead, he whispered. This area, Guo usually deserted. Finding someone out here Guo cause for concern. Monkey, get up there and check it out. A lean man nicknamed Monkey blurred into motion. He leaped 4 m into the air, kicked off a trunk with 1 foot, and soared even higher. His cloud step technique is almost at the Grandmaster level. Xiaojing whispered, impressed. Guo is only at small success. Guo is still at entry level. Yun Shui added. But his myriad trace steps are at small success. Monkey dropped back down a moment later. Captain, it's a kid. Actually, we've seen him before. We have. Yeah, the one you said reminded you of us when we were younger. Poor kid's luck has run out, though. There are two tusker boars right in front of him. Monkey hadn't noticed the pile of boar hides Guo was carrying, or he wouldn't have been worried about his luck. Old Lu nodded. Oh him. Let's head over. We have to pass that way anyway. If he's in trouble, we'll lend a hand. Yun Chui frowned. A student out here alone. He looked about your level, Monkey recalled. And pretty poor. Might be out here looking for a way to end it all. Yin Shan smirked. Probably. Yoi's heart raced. She knew how terrifying those boars were after her 2-hour ordeal. How could a lone student survive 2 of them? Guo was walking down the path when Guo suddenly sneezed. Is someone talking about him? Guo rubbed his nose and looked up. His eyes lit up. 2 tusker boars were lounging right ahead. Talk about a payday. More experience points were literally walking toward him. Guo picked up a stone and kicked it with a sharp crack. It soared through the air and slammed into the lead boar's head. Both beasts scrambled up, snorting in fury. The group watching from the trees went silent. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. Is he insane? Yan hissed. He's not running. He's provoking them. See? Monkey whispered. Guo told you. He's got a death wish. Yoi's face went pale. She recognized him. Wait. That's his classmate. That's Guo. He's only at the 3rd level of the martial apprentice realm. We have to save him. She knew him as the famous poverty student from Hanghai High School. To her, seeing him smile while facing 2 boars looked like the grin of a madman who had finally lost his mind. As the class monitor, she felt a sudden surge of responsibility. She had to save him, then give him a piece of her mind for being so reckless. Xiao Jing. Old Lu barked. The archer raised her bow, but then her arms froze. Guo was not waiting for the boars to charge. Guo was running straight at them. At this distance, even a master archer couldn't intervene without hitting him. No. Yoi squeezed her eyes shut. She didn't want to see him get torn apart. Holy crap. Old Lu gasped. Are you sure he's only at the 3rd level? Guo did not know Guo had an audience. Guo just thought the boars were moving too slow. As Guo closed the gap, his hand blurred. His fingers gripped the hilt of his bronze sword. Flash. The drawing sword technique. Guo, a silver streak in the sunlight. The first boar's throat opened before it could even grunt. Guo did not stop. Guo pivoted, the blade rising in a clean vertical arc. The second boar dropped instantly, its skull split. Guo flicked the blood off the blade and sheathed it with a satisfying click. Wait. His hand tightened on the hilt again. Guo sensed movement. Guo spun around, eyes narrowing, toward the bushes where the sound had come from. Someone Guo there watching him take down those 2 boars so easily. The guy they called Monkey couldn't help but swear under his breath. Even the big burly leader turned to Yun Xioi with a look of pure shock. He muttered that his strength had to be at least at the 9th level of the martial apprentice realm, maybe even higher. He noticed his hand tightening on his sword hilt again as Guo glared toward them. Little brother, we mean no harm, the big man shouted, raising his hands. Beside him, Xiao Jing, the archer, finally opened her eyes. She had missed the entire fight because she Guo too scared to watch him get gored. When she saw him, standing over the dead boars, she looked dazed. Sister Jing, did you save him? She asked softly. It wasn't him, Xiao Jing replied, her voice trembling. He killed them himself. Yoi Guo, stunned. She had just fought a boar herself and knew how terrifyingly difficult they were to handle. Seeing him standing there cold and alert, she finally poked her head out from behind the group. Guo. She called out. Guo stared at the group, wondering if Guo should just abandon his kills and run. That big guy Guo, definitely a true martial artist. Look at those muscles. Guo was not even close to that level of physique. Then a girl stepped out from behind him and yelled his name. Who Guo she? Guo searched his memory, but nothing came up. Who are you? Guo asked. Yunshu froze. The rest of her team turned to look at her with expressions that clearly said, Wait, didn't you say he Guo, your classmate? Class monitor? She screamed, her face turning red. Guo is your class monitor. Impossible, Guo said flatly. Guo, remember the class monitor is Ning Shuer. Guo know what she looks like. She Guo the monitor last year. This year, it's him. It's him. Yin Xioe Guo fuming. She and Ning Schwerer were the most famous school beauties at Hanghai High. How could Guo know the other girl, but not her? We had been in the same grade for 3 years. Even if she wasn't the monitor, Guo should have recognized her face. Guo stared at her, his mind racing through his memories. Wait, holy crap. She really is his classmate. What Guo wrong with the original owner of this body? How could he not recognize his own classmates? She Guo actually pretty cute, too. Maybe he Guo so buried in his own poverty and low self-esteem that he just blocked everyone out. A series of emotions flashed across his face. Confusion, realization, and finally embarrassment. The group watched him like they were watching a theater performance. "Oh, monitor," Guo said, giving her an apologetic look. "Sorry about that. The wind, Guo. So strong just now it got in his eyes. Guo could not see you clearly." The group stared at him. Wind. There wasn't even a breeze. Guo was lying through his teeth and doing it with a straight face. They all wanted to complain, but they stayed quiet. Guo was being incredibly shameless. The big leader Lu Heng let out a booming laugh. "Haha, brother Guisha, you're a funny guy." Guo recognized that voice. "Uncle, have we met before?" "It's brother." Lu Heng corrected him instantly, looking wounded. "Call him brother Lu, or just Lu Heng. Guo is only 20. Guo just look a bit mature. Didn't Guo invite you to hunt with us a couple of days ago? You turned him down." "Oh, it's you, uncle," Guo said. "It's brother." "Sure thing, uncle." Lu Heng gave up. No matter how much he corrected him, Guo kept calling him uncle. He turned a fierce glare toward Yin Xiaoyi, as if warning her that if she tried calling him uncle, she Guo dead. She nodded frantically, terrified. "Anyway, if there's nothing else, Guo will be going," Guo said. "Guo is busy." They didn't believe him for a second. It was obvious Guo just wanted to get away from them. Well, everyone except Yun Shui realized that. She Guo too busy being curious. "Guo, wait," she asked. "What's your actual cultivation level?" The others leaned in. They were only at the 5th level of the martial apprentice realm, and their mental power wasn't strong enough to sense someone else's rank yet. Only a true martial artist with chi could do that easily. "It's no secret," Guo said. "See 7th level. See 7th level?" They all shouted in unison. They had seen that sword strike. It was so fast it looked like something a true martial artist would do. They couldn't believe Guo was only at the 7th level. Then why did the school records say, "You were only at the 3rd level?" Yoi asked, puzzled. Guo had a cold that day. Guo lied smoothly. Guo felt weak. Guo only hit the strength tester with about 300 lb of force, so they assumed Guo was at the 3rd level. Guo watched them nod, actually believing his nonsense. Guo felt a bit guilty. His acting Guo terrible. How are they falling for this? Guo was too cynical, or Guo everyone in this world just really naive? To be fair, nobody would ever guess Guo had jumped 4 levels in a few days. School strength testers were basic. They didn't account for hidden potential or illness. Right. See you. Guo did not wait for another question. Guo grabbed the 2 boars and took off like a shot. The team watched him disappear into the brush, totally speechless. "Are we that scary?" Lu Hong muttered. "Did we frighten him?" Yoi, Xiao Jing asked. "You didn't bully him at school, did you?" Yoi watched him run and asked herself the same thing. She didn't think she'd ever been mean to him. In fact, she Guo mostly annoyed that a girl as pretty as her didn't even get a second glance from him. Once Guo was far enough away, Guo let out a sigh of relief. Guo was worried they'd try to take his prey, but Guo would manage to keep his prizes. Experience points were way more important than looking at a pretty girl. Guo touched the bow. Experience points plus 10,000. "So good," Guo whispered, looking at the carcasses. Then Guo paused. Guo looked left. Guo looked right. Which way did Guo come from? Guo had been so desperate to get away and absorb the experience that Guo just run in a random direction. Guo checked his phone. It was past 5:00 p.m. The sun Guo going down, and that's when the real monsters came out to play. Guo was officially lost. Guo stood there staring at the darkening woods. But then his brain finally kicked into gear. Wait a second. No matter how far Guo would run. There. Guo, no way. Guo had left the Hanghai City perimeter by more than 100 miles. As long as Guo was within that range, what Guo was actually afraid of? The Martial Artist Guild organized a massive sweep every 3 years to clear out monsters within a 100-mile radius of the city. According to his memory, the last cleanup happened just 2 months ago. That meant the monster population Guo low right now, and most of them were weak. Even if Guo ran into a level 2 beast that Guo could not beat, Guo could definitely outrun it. His basic movement technique Guo already at the great success stage. If Guo could not fight, Guo would just bolt. Part of him wished Guo had a Heil movement manual to make it even easier. But for now, Guo was just curious how much experience a level 2 monster would give him. Guo looked around, not a single soul in sight. Did nobody spend the night outside the city? Were they really that timid? Guo had hoped to run into a traveler to ask for directions. If the city Guo close, Guo would head home. Sleeping in a bed is always better than the dirt. If it Guo too far, Guo would just find a safe spot to hide. If Guo got lucky, Guo might even harvest some more experience points during the night. That's when Guo saw it. High up in a massive tree nearby, Guo spotted the faint outline of a hollow. It was partially hidden by thick branches and leaves, but it looked promising. Guo hoped his eyes weren't playing tricks on him. A tree hole would be the perfect place to hunker down. Nighttime Guo when monsters were most active. Creatures like the tusk boars usually just lazed around during the day unless you provoked them, but they turned aggressive the moment the sun went down. Guo approached the tree. The trunk Guo at least 2 m wide and towered 20 m into the sky. The hole Guo right in the middle, about 10 m up. Since Guo hadn't learned any fancy wall climbing martial arts yet, Guo had to do it the old-fashioned way. Normally, climbing a trunk this smooth and thick without tools would be impossible. Luckily, there were small notches carved into the wood at regular intervals. Someone had been here before and put a lot of work into making this accessible. Guo started climbing. By the time Guo hit the 6.m mark, Guo was feeling pretty impressed with whoever carved these grips. A few moments later, Guo pulled himself onto a thick branch and crawled into the hollow where the branch met the trunk. Guo looked out, but all Guo saw an endless sea of green. Guo could not see Hanghai City or even tell which direction it Guo in. Guo thought about climbing higher to get a better view, but Guo quickly killed that idea. It was too dangerous. Guo turned his attention to the tree hole. It wasn't huge, but it Guo plenty of space for one person. There Guo even a bed inside, a flat ledge naturally connected to the trunk. It looked ancient. Guo ran his hand over the surface, pulling back, a finger coated in a thick layer of dust. Guo took the tusk boar pelts off his back and spread one over the wooden ledge. Guo sat down and grinned. Guo was a genius. Luckily, these pelts didn't smell or this would have been a nightmare. Guo pulled up his status panel named Guo Realm. 5th level Martial Apprentice Stage 7 Cultivation Northern Brightness Divine Art. Max level. Basic Physical Exercises Entry Martial Arts. Basic Combat. Small Success. Basic Sword Technique. Great Success. Basic Movement. Great Success. Drawing Sword Technique. Great Success. Experience points 40,965. Gaining 7 points per minute. The points were piling up fast since this spot felt secure. Guo decided not to wait. Guo dumped all his saved experience into his cultivation realm. It was seamless, and Guo felt the energy surge through him, pushing him straight into the 8th stage of the 5th level. Immediately after the breakthrough, a wave of hunger hit him. Guo popped a blood-replenishing pill, and the hollow feeling in his stomach slowly faded. At this rate, the effects of his current pills would be gone by the time Guo hit the 9th stage. Guo needed more, but Guo was broke. If Guo had the cash, Guo would head straight to the guild to stock up. Guo checked the math. Guo still needed 52,816 points for the next jump. Guo could not help but sigh. A few days ago, Guo was stuck at the 3rd stage. Now Guo was at the 8th. It felt like a dream. Guo stood at the edge of the tree hole looking up at the sky. "Mom, Dad, can you see him?" Guo whispered. Guo was not sure if Guo was talking to his parents from his past life or this one. Maybe both. Guo is actually making something of himself. The night sky Guo stunning. Without city lights, the stars seemed to swirl around him in a brilliant, colorful display. It was a view Guo never could have seen back on Earth. Suddenly, the silence broke. "Oh, whoa." The sound of snapping branches and monster cries echoed through the woods. The forest had come alive. Using the moonlight, Guo peered down at the base of the tree. A beewolf Guo facing off against a tusk boar. A beewolf Guo, only a level 1. Stage 6 monster, way weaker than its cousin, the mad beewolf, but it Guo still a predator. The wolf Guo only 1 stage higher than the boar, but the fight wasn't even close. The wolf lunged, sinking its teeth into the boar's neck. The boar thrashed for a few seconds before going limp, letting out one final angry squeal. The beewolf didn't waste a second. It started tearing into the carcass, clearly starving. It was so focused on its meal that it didn't even notice him watching from above. "There's his chance," Guo whispered. Guo slowly drew his bronze sword. Guo lined up his shot and took a breath. Then Guo jumped. A 10, drop Guo. Nothing for a 5th-level martial artist, let alone someone at the 8th stage. The beewolf felt the shift in the air. It looked up, meat still hanging from its jaws, but it Guo too late. His blade pierced straight through its skull before it could even flinch. It died with a look of pure satisfaction still on its face, never knowing what hit it. The wolf died with a look of pure confusion on its face. It hadn't felt a thing. Guo let out a soft breath, his heart hammering against his ribs. Guo had actually done it. Guo reached down to pull his bronze sword out of the beewolf's skull. But Guo froze. The forest wasn't silent anymore. Oh whoa. The air filled with the sounds of snapping brush and high-pitched squeals. It was coming from every direction. Guo listened closely. Most of the cries were deep and guttural tusk boars. A lot of them. Something felt wrong. The hair on the back of his neck stood up, and a voice in his head screamed at him to move. Guo did not hesitate. As Guo jerked his sword free, Guo triggered the Northern Brightness Divine Art. Experience points plus 565. Guo looked at the 2 carcasses on the ground, feeling a pang of regret for leaving all that potential energy behind. But the sounds were getting closer. Guo scrambled back up the tree, digging his fingers into the grooves of the bark. Guo barely reached the high branches when a massive pack of tusk boars burst into the clearing. They gathered around the fallen boar, letting out mournful, angry cries that shook the leaves around him. Guo stayed perfectly still, hidden by the thick foliage. Even if they looked up, they couldn't climb this high. They stared at the dead beewolf with pure hatred. Its teeth marks were all over their fallen kin. They didn't even notice him watching from above. Guo felt a sharp pain in his chest, but it wasn't an injury. It was heartbreaking. There were millions of potential experience points down there, and Guo was stuck in a tree. Suddenly, the clearing went quiet. Guo leaned out slightly, his breath hitching. The tusk boars weren't alone anymore. A pack of beewolves had emerged from the shadows. The 2 groups stared each other down, the tension thick enough to cut with a blade. It was a standoff, a total war between species. They didn't wait long. With a collective roar, the 2 packs collided. It was a bloodbath. The beewolves were higher level, but the tusk boars had the numbers. It was a borsy tactic, and it Guo working. Guo watched, mesmerized, his fear replaced by greed. Every time a beast fell, Guo saw a pile of gold coins and experience points. If Guo could just scavenge the leftovers when this Guo over, Guo would be rich. Other predators in the forest heard the commotion and wisely steered clear. The sun began to peek over the horizon, casting long shadows through the trees. Down below, the sounds of slaughter finally faded. "Here we go," Guo whispered. Guo looked down, expecting a field of corpses. His jaw dropped. "Hey, don't take it all. Leave some for him." The survivors were retreating, but they weren't going empty-handed. Every single wolf and boar Guo dragging a carcass away. Friend or foe, they didn't care. They were clearing the buffet. Guo waited until the last tail disappeared into the brush, and the woods went silent. Guo dropped from the tree, landing heavily. Guo immediately scuffed the dirt with his boots to hide his footprints. Guo would read enough novels to know that leaving tracks Guo a rookie mistake. Guo looked around the clearing and groaned. Those greedy bastards had taken every intact body. The jig Guo up. 2 men stepped out. The leader had a jagged scar running down his face, and his eyes immediately landed on his pile of pelts. A predatory grin spread across his lips. "Quite a haul you've got there, little brother," the scarred man said. "How about your big brother? Da helps you carry that back." Guo narrowed his eyes. "Tell the rest of your friends to come out, too." Guo see them. Da chuckled and clapped his hands. "Sharp eyes, kid. Come on out, boys." 5 more men stepped out of the brush. When they saw the pile of high-grade pelts, their expressions turned to pure greed. One of them stepped forward, brandishing a blade. Listen, kid, leave everything valuable. Drop your sword and put your hands behind your head. Do it now or things get ugly. We're the tiger mercenaries. Another one sneered. Be a good boy and follow orders. His stomach dropped. Guo knew that name. The tiger. Mercenaries were famous in Hanghai City, but for all the wrong reasons. They had 3 martial masters and dozens of lower-level fighters. Inside the city, they acted like model citizens because of the Martial Arts Association and the inspectors. But out here in the wild, they were murderers and thieves. Rumor had it they had powerful backers who kept them out of jail. Da saw the look on his face and laughed. Ah, so you've heard of us? Good. Leave the gear and we'll let you live. We're in a good mood today. Guo knew, Guo lying. The tiger mercenaries never left witnesses. That Guo, how they stayed out of trouble. Everything? Guo asked, his voice trembling slightly. You want everything? They grinned, thinking Guo was terrified. They had no idea who they were dealing with. The men burst out laughing at the same time. Da saw him trembling and started walking toward him, his guard completely down. He didn't think Guo was a threat at all. One look at his cheap, worn-out clothes told him everything he needed to know. In his eyes, Guo was just a poor kid. And if Guo was poor, there Guo no way his martial arts level Guo high. He probably figured Guo would just gotten lucky and scavenged those high-grade pelts after some wild beasts fought each other during the night. Guo watched him get closer, his heart racing. But Guo did not move. Guo was not just waiting. Guo was calculating. His lackeys were still a few paces back. If Guo moved too early, they might scatter and run. Guo could not let that happen. If even one of them escaped, the tiger mercenaries would hunt him down for the rest of his life. Guo had to pull the tiger's teeth and kill the cubs in one go. They kept coming, grinning like wolves. Guo lowered his head, letting his shoulders shake to sell the act. Then Guo felt them close enough. It was time. Guo snapped his head up. The fear Guo gone, replaced by a cold, sharp glare. Dao Ba's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. He realized something Guo wrong, but he Guo too slow. Before he could even raise his hand, Guo lunged. His bronze sword blurred through the air. Drawing sword technique. The blade whistled as it sliced clean through his neck. Da didn't even have time to feel pain. His head slid off his shoulders and his body slumped into the dirt. Guo did not stop to watch him fall. Guo was already moving toward the others. The lackeys stood frozen, staring at their headless leader. It was like their brains had short-circuited. Guo cut down the second man before the first drop of blood even hit the grass. When the warm spray splashed across their faces, the remaining 3 finally snapped out of it. They didn't try to fight. They dropped to their knees, faces pale with terror, begging for their lives. Which way to Hanghai City? Guo asked, his voice flat. They scrambled to point in the same direction, thinking their cooperation would buy them mercy. Guo nodded, memorizing the path. Then Guo swung his sword 3 more times. Guo could not afford to be soft. Once the clearing Guo silent, Guo dragged the bodies into the thick brush. Guo had to be fast. It was daylight now, and anyone could be watching from the shadows. If someone saw him and realized Guo could absorb corpses, the whole world would come after him. Guo placed his hands on them and activated the system. Experience points plus 12,000. Experience points plus 7,000. Guo exhaled slowly. Da alone gave him over 10,000 points, which meant he Guo at least at the martial master realm. If Guo hadn't taken him by surprise, that fight would have been a nightmare. The others were weaker, likely between the 5th and 7th levels of the martial apprentice realm. His spiritual sense wasn't strong enough to gauge their levels beforehand. So Guo was glad Guo played it smart. An hour later, Guo was back in Hanghai City, standing at a stall to sell the pelts. The owner, old Shun, walked up and gave him a massive thumbs up. Little brother, you've got real skill, he said, looking at the mountain of fur. The quality is a bit rough, but the sheer quantity is incredible. Just luck, Guo replied modestly. Old Shin shook his head, clearly impressed. Luck is a part of strength, kid. Stay here while Guo tally this up. It took him and his assistant nearly 30 minutes to count everything. When he finally came back, he handed him a list. Tusker pelts for 114,000. Bewolf pelts for 152,000. Total is 266,000 yuan. Let's call it 270,000. Even his heart skipped a beat. 270,000. Guo hadn't realized. The scavenge pile Guo worth that much. Guo pushed the list back toward him without looking at it. Guo, trust your word, old Chun. There Guo no point in counting it himself. It was better to show him Guo trusted him and build a connection. A few seconds later, his phone vibrated in his pocket. The money had arrived. Guo thanked him and headed straight for the pill stalls. Guo was still a poor man in the world of martial arts, and Guo needed to spend this money wisely to grow stronger. Guo found the shopkeeper Guo had bought from before. He recognized him instantly, probably because Guo was the only person crazy enough to pay 10,000 yuan in cold cash. "What are you looking for today, kid?" he asked. "Do you have anything to replenish blood and qi?" He signaled for him to follow him into the actual shop behind the stall. "The stuff out there is for travelers. The real medicine is inside." Guo felt a surge of hope. Maybe Guo could finally afford the good stuff. But when Guo asked for a bottle of blood-increasing qi pills, the shopkeeper looked at him like Guo was joking. "A whole bottle?" He sighed, shaking his head. "Young man, you won't even find a full bottle of that in the martial arts association here. Hanghai is a small city. Anything high-grade has to be pre-ordered from the capital. Besides, a single bottle would cost you at least 2 million yuan. His stomach sank. 2 million. Guo was still broke after all. "If you're on a budget," he continued, pointing to a glass case, "Guo would suggest these lower-grade blood-replenishing pills, Dincoin pills, or the 10 ingredient grade supplement. They aren't as powerful, but for your level, the lower-grade blood-replenishing pill is the best bang for your buck." The price for the lower-grade blood-replenishing pills Guo steep, 30,000 yuan per pill. The shopkeeper explained that for someone at the 5th level of the martial apprentice realm, a single pill could push him to the 6th level without any discomfort. Of course, the higher his level became, the more pills Guo would need to see results. Guo could have saved money by eating demon beast meat instead, but Guo used demon beast for experience points, not dinner. Besides, with his terrible cooking skills, Guo would rather just swallow a pill and save the time. Guo hesitated for a moment, looking at his bank balance, then looked up at the shopkeeper. Guo told him Guo take 9 pills. His eyes lit up instantly. Most people bought these one at a time, so a bulk order of 9 Guo rare. He looked him up and down, probably wondering if a kid like him actually had the cash. But as soon as the transfer went through, his skepticism vanished, replaced by a massive, fawning smile. He handed over the pills with a flourish. Guo did not stick around to chat. Guo was broke again, and Guo would ask all the questions Guo needed to. It was time to go home and break through to the 9th level. Back in his apartment, Guo sat on the sofa and stared at the small pills in his hand. They cost the same as the body tempering powder, and Guo wondered if they were worth it. Guo popped one into his mouth. The taste was strange, but it Guo a massive improvement over the bone-strengthening pills. At least these didn't taste like they were rotting. As the pill dissolved, a warm sensation spread through his chest. Within minutes, the medicinal power. Guo fully absorbed. His body felt comfortable and satisfied, like Guo just finished a perfect meal. Guo could not resist. Guo took another one and pulled up his attribute panel to check his progress. Name Guo Realm 5th level. Martial Apprentice 111,846 400. Cultivation, Northern Brightness, Divine Art Skills, Basic Gymnastics, Entry Level, Basic Combat, Small. Success, Basic Sword Technique, Great Success, Basic Movement, Great Success, and Sword Drawing Technique, Great Success. Current Experience Points, 134,527. At the 8th, Guo gaining 8 experience points every minute automatically. Guo had been so busy all day that Guo hadn't checked the total. Guo expected maybe 80 or 90,000, but seeing over 130,000 Guo, a beautiful surprise. Guo thought back to the wind wolves and fang boars from the night before. Those beasts were practically saints for giving him this much progress. Guo shook the thought away and focused. It was time to level up. Guo poured his experience points into his realm, and that familiar, mysterious power flooded his veins. When the energy stopped surging, Guo was at the peak of the 8th level. A moment later, Guo felt the internal barrier shatter. Guo had officially reached the 9th level of the martial apprentice realm. Immediately, a wave of intense hunger hit him. Guo reached into his bag, grabbed 2 more blood-replenishing pills, and swallowed them whole. The hunger vanished instantly. These pills were effective, but Guo would already burned through 4 of them. That Guo 120,000 yuan gone in the blink of an eye. The old saying Guo true. Literature is for the poor, but martial arts is for the rich. Meanwhile, across the city, Yin Shui Guo moping around her house. Her brother, Yin Shan, noticed her slumped on the couch. Their father, Yin Shan, Sr., asked what Guo wrong, and Yin Shan explained that she'd been humbled by a classmate. Her father actually looked relieved. His daughter had always been too arrogant, thinking no one besides the elite heirs of the big families Guo worth her time. Yun Shui sighed and told them about the trip to the outskirts. She mentioned killing a fanged boar, though she left out the part where she had to exhaust the beast to death because it Guo too embarrassing. Her mother hovered over her, checking for injuries, but her father wanted to know why she felt so defeated if she'd actually managed to kill. Yin let the secret out. He told their father that on the way back, they ran into a classmate of hers with just 2 casual arrows. That boy had dropped 2 fang boars like it, Guo nothing. Their father laughed, telling Chio that once she mastered her power at the 8th level, she could do the same. But then, Yin Shan dropped the real bombshell. The boy claimed to be only at the 7th level, though he suspected the kid Guo hiding his true strength and Guo likely an 8th level like her. Shi's father nodded, impressed that a student knew how to hide his trump cards. But Shi Guo still frustrated. She felt weak, and more than that, she couldn't stop thinking about the way Guo had looked at her. Shi Guo, a beautiful girl, but he had looked at her like Shi Guo just some random person on the street. It stung. She begged her father to teach her advanced martial arts, but he refused, telling her to focus on her exams and master her small success in basic sword technique first. While they talked in a heavily guarded study across town, a burly man stared at his butler in disbelief. This Guo, the head of the Lin family, he couldn't wrap his head around the report he'd just received. That kid, Guo, somehow reached the 7th level right under their noses. Given the boy's miserable living conditions, he shouldn't have been able to get past the 5th level. The butler confirmed the news, his face pale. The intelligence Guo's solid. Guo no longer the weakling they thought he Guo. His butler stood before him, his face grim. He wasn't the type to exaggerate. If he said his sources were solid, then the news Guo true. Guo sat in silence, processing the reality that Guo had reached the 7th level right under his nose. Based on his miserable life, he shouldn't have been able to cross the 5th level. If anything, he Guo likely hiding even more strength. Those thugs are useless, Guo growled, slamming his hand onto the desk. They can't even keep tabs on one kid. The boy is deeper than he looks, sir. The butler replied, sensing his fury. He leaned in and made a sharp cutting motion across his throat. Shall Guo handle it permanently? Guo tapped his fingers on the desk, thinking. The Tiger Squad and Yun Shan went to the desolate city. They took most of our elite combat power with them. Is there anyone left? Guo will check, sir, he said. If you find someone, Guo added, don't kill him yet. Just break his arms and legs and bring him to him. Guo was not sure why Guo wanted him alive, but Guo was not ready to let him die just yet. The butler nodded and left the room. Guo leaned back, muttering to himself. Scar Guo, a complete waste of space getting ambushed by a mere martial apprentice. Meanwhile, in a dark corner of the city, a man known as Fourth Brother sat with his crew. One of his lackeys looked at him nervously. Fourth Brother, should we report this to the boss? How? Fourth Brother snapped. There, in the desolate city. We can't reach them. Suddenly, his phone started ringing to a pop song. He signaled for silence and answered. Stuart Su, what brings you to his door today? Little Four. The butler's voice came through the line. How many people do you have at the martial artist realm right now? 2. Fourth Brother answered. The strongest is at the 5th stage. That's enough. Guo is sending you a photo. If you can, break all 4 of his limbs and bring him in. Consider it done. Fourth Brother hung up and looked at the young lackey beside him. He'd put the call on speaker, so the kid had heard everything. A moment later, the phone buzzed with the photo. Fourth Brother held it up. Take a look. You're a martial artist now, so it's time you start handling real business. The lackey Xian squinted at the screen. Wait, Guo know this guy. You do? Fourth Brother. This is the kid who killed Scar and the others. Fourth Brother's eyes widened. Are you sure? He looks younger in this photo. Guo is positive. Guo just didn't recognize him at first glance because He's dressed differently. Fourth brother chuckled darkly. What a coincidence. How many people did this kid piss off? He even offended Stuart Sue. Who exactly is Stuart Sue? Xiaoan asked. Fourth brother shook his head. To be honest, Guo does not know. Nobody in the mercenary group knows his true identity. But listen to him, Xiaosan. It doesn't matter how much noise we make. As long as there's no direct evidence linking us to the crime, Stuart Sue can protect us from anything. Xiaosan looked stunned. If a mere butler had that much power, the master behind him had to be godlike. Tell the boys to keep their eyes peeled. Fourth brother ordered. We move together. Guo does not want any surprises. While they were plotting his downfall, Guo was miles away, deep in the forest outside the city. Guo had just reached the 9th level of the martial apprentice realm, and Guo could not wait to test his strength. The night belonged to the beasts. Most humans stayed behind the safety lines, but Guo was different. Guo moved through the trees, absorbing experience points like a vacuum. Every time a beast lunged at him, his sword found its mark. Experience plus 7,000. Experience plus 6,500. Guo sliced through a group of small green snakes and scoffed. Whoever named them had a sick sense of humor. These things were 6 m long and as thick as a tree trunk. Ever since the spiritual qi recovery, everything had evolved. Even ants were the size of dogs now, though they were still the weakest tier. Guo glanced at his status panel. Name Guo Realm 9th level Martial Apprentice 100 out of 100,000. Cultivation. Northern Brightness. Divine. Max level skills. Basic sword technique. Great success. Basic movement. Great success. Sword drawing. Great success. Experience points. 124,111. His passive cultivation Guo, giving him 9 points every minute. Guo had enough experience to break through to the martial artist realm right now. But Guo did not have a safe place to meditate. Guo was outside the South Gate, which Guo much more dangerous than the North. Guo would already killed several beasts just getting this far. Crack. Guo froze. Guo looked around, scanning the shadows, but saw nothing. Guo figured Guo had just stepped on a dry branch. Guo did not notice the tiny chip that had formed on the edge of his bronze sword. Guo shaved it, gathered the furs from his kills, and kept moving. The sounds of hissing and croaking grew louder. Guo dropped his loot and climbed a thick tree to get a better vantage point. When Guo reached the top and looked through the leaves, Guo nearly cursed out loud. About 50 m away, in a clearing, a massive swarm of small green snakes Guo facing off against a group of giant toad-like creatures. It looked like a total war Guo about to break out, just like the wolves and boars from the night before. There had to be at least 100 of them. Most people would be terrified to stumble onto a battlefield like this. But as Guo watched them, a grin spread across his face. To him, this wasn't a danger. It was a gold hiss. Guo did not feel any fear. Instead, Guo was buzzing with excitement. To most, a battlefield like this Guo a nightmare. But to him, it Guo a gold hiss. It meant his experience points were about to skyrocket. Come on, Guo whispered, watching from the branch. Start fighting already. Why are you just staring at each other? Guo cheered them on from his perch, feeling like a spectator at a bloody arena. Guo was not in a hurry to climb down yet. Guo would worked hard to get up here, in the view Guo perfect. If this tree were just a little thicker, Guo would have considered breaking through to the martial artist realm right then and there. The massacre lasted through the night. As the first light of dawn began to creep over the horizon, the chaos finally wound down. Only about 10 creatures were left standing, exhausted and wounded. It was time. Guo had to move fast before the sun came up and the actual martial artists started arriving to claim the area. The thought of all those experience points cleared the sleepiness right out of his head. Guo leaped from the tree, landing heavily and leaving 2 deep footprints in the dirt. Usually, Guo would take the time to cover his tracks, but Guo was too impatient now. Guo sprinted toward the battlefield. Before the survivors even realized Guo was there, his blade flashed. One of the green snakes went limp instantly. Asterisk croak. The remaining beasts froze. Their internal war ended the second a human appeared. They might have been killing each other a second ago, but now they were united by a common hatred. They charged at him, as one. It didn't matter. Guo was at a higher realm than any of them, and they had spent the whole night fighting. They were at less than 30 of their peak strength. Even if there had been twice as many, they were just a disorganized mob to him. Guo moved through them like a whirlwind. his sword cutting through scales and flesh until the last one fell. Ping. A sharp metallic snap echoed through the clearing. Guo looked down at his hand. His bronze sword, which had already been chipped, finally gave out. It snapped, clean in two, as if hit by an invisible force. Chap quality, Guo muttered, shaking his head. If the salesgirl who sold him this weapon heard him, she probably would have tried to kill him herself. These bronze swords were meant for beginners to practice forms, not for slaughtering dozens of first-level beasts. Their hides and bones grew tougher as they leveled up, and the fact that this blade had lasted this long Guo a testament to the blacksmith's skill. Guo would actually gotten more than his money's worth, but all Guo could think about. Guo, the 3,000 Guo just watched snap in half. Guo sighed and shoved the broken hilt back into its sheath. Guo did not have time to mourn a piece of metal. Guo got to work absorbing the experience points before the world woke up. By the time Guo made it back into the city, Guo could not stop grinning. People on the street stared as Guo walked by, lugging a massive roll of furs and hides on his back. Guo looked like a walking mountain of loot. Most of them watched him with pure envy. Even if the quality of the furs, Guo poor, a haul that size Guo worth a fortune to an average person. Nobody tried to rob him, though. The city had strict laws, and anyone caught fighting would be locked away for years. Of course, outside the city gates, it would have been a different story. Guo noticed a few martial artists in the crowd, looking at him with greedy eyes. But Guo did not care. Guo was too happy. His experience points had reached a staggering 580,000. Guo could not hide the joy on his face if Guo tried. To the onlookers, Guo just looked like a kid who knew he Guo about to get rich. Brother Guo. Guo. Someone Guo calling his name. Guo. Guo so deep in his own head, surrounded by the noise of the morning market that Guo almost missed it. Guo turned around and saw a familiar face. Boss Chun. What are you doing here? Chini saw his confused look and laughed. Guo sent people to the Northgate market to collect materials, but his actual business is right around the corner. He pointed down the street with a look of immense pride. Look right there. Guo followed his finger. A large shop sat on the corner. Shinji Apparel. It had a classic, traditional look, guarded by two imposing stone lions at the entrance. It looked peaceful, professional, and very expensive. Old Shun, you've got some serious skill, Guo said. Impressed. You didn't get a shop in a location like this without some serious backing. Guo is just a minority shareholder, he said, waving it off, though he still looked pleased. The big boss doesn't like managing things. Anyway, come inside, sit, for a bit, and maybe. He glanced at the massive roll of fur on his back. Guo knew exactly what he wanted. Guo laughed. Talk about perfect timing. Guo was just looking for a place to sell these. That's great to hear. Guo will make sure you get a price that makes you happy. Come on, let's get inside. It's too cold to stand out. Here. Chini's face lit up. He led him inside and immediately waved over an employee. Xiao Wang, take these and tally them up. Give him the highest possible rate. Yes, boss, the young man said. He turned to him with a respectful bow. Sir, if you please. Guo handed over the heavy bundle. Thanks for the help. No trouble at all. Please wait a moment. He carried the furs into a side room used for appraisals. Brother Guo Chuni said, gesturing to the racks of clothing and gear surrounding us. While we wait, see if there's anything you need. Him? Guo does not think Guo need much. Guo replied. Don't be like that, Qin said, walking over to a display. Once you have money, you need to dress the part. Look at this armor. He pulled down a set of light plating. It looks heavy, but thanks to a special process, it's barely heavier than what you're wearing right now. Guo took it from him and weighed in his hands. He Guo right. It was surprisingly light. Guo looked at it with newfound curiosity, wondering how they even manufactured something like this. Chuni smiled, seeing his interest. The best part isn't the weight, he whispered. It's what it can stop. This armor is special. Chunwei continued, his voice full of pride. Any demonic beast below level 2 won't be able to leave a scratch on you. Guo raised an eyebrow. That impressive? Absolutely. Frontline fighters and mercenary squads wear this exact style to soak up damage. If you don't like the look, Guo has others. We have styles modeled after the Qin, Shang, and Han dynasties. And if none of those work, we even offer private custom tailoring. Boss Qin Guo, a smooth talker. He Guo making a very convincing case that Guo needed an upgrade. Guo looked down at his worn-out clothes. Do you have anything in the style Guo is wearing now? We do. He nodded quickly. We carry 3 grades high, medium, and low. What are you looking for? What's the difference? Guo asked. I rather use premium furs. It can negate about 50 of the damage from a level 2 beast. Mid-grade is around 30 and low grade is 10. Guo felt his heart skip a beat, absorbing half the impact. From a level 2 beast Guo incredible. That could be the difference between a broken rib and a minor bruise. Is it expensive? Guo asked, already bracing his wallet. If the price, Guo insane, Guo would have to settle for the mid-grade. Not at all, Qin said. Since it's not a full-plate armor set, even the high-grade version is only 50,000 yuan. Guo did not hesitate. Fine. Give him 2 sets. We spent the rest of the morning getting him fitted. By the time Guo walked out of Qin's clothing, the sun Guo high in the sky. Guo was wearing one of the new outfits, and Guo had to admit, the quality Guo night and day. It was comfortable, flexible, and felt sturdy. It was money well spent. Guo did not head home yet. Guo had one more stop, the weapon shop. His 3,000 yuan bronze sword had shattered in his last fight. Going into the exams without a weapon would be suicide. Oh, it's you again. A girl in a staff uniform said as Guo walked in. What are you looking for this time? She didn't remember him because of his looks. She remembered him because of how much Guo had winced and groaned when Guo paid for that cheap bronze sword last time. Guo must have looked incredibly pathetic. Guo, remember you had a 90-chain long sword. Guo said, is it still here? The last 90 chains sold this morning, she said, checking her records. She paused, looking at him more closely. We don't have any 90 chains left, but we do have a 101 chain long quan sword. It's much more expensive though. 40,000 yuan. The 90 chain Guo. Only 20,000. His eyes widened. That much of a jump? Yes, sir, she explained. Once a weapon hits a 100 chains, it's classified as a sharp tool. The quality is on a completely different level from ordinary tools. Guo listened intently. Guo knew the basics, but she Guo filling in the gaps. Anything under 100 chains Guo, an ordinary tool. From 100 to 499. They were sharp tools. Anything that broke the 500 mark Guo, a treasure tool. What's above treasure tools? Guo asked. She didn't answer, probably. Figuring a high school student didn't need to know. Would you like to see the 101 chain sword? Lead the way, Guo said. As Guo followed her, Guo thought about the tears. Ordinary sharp treasure based on the novels Guo used to read. The next ones were probably famous tools and god tools. Sir, here it is. Guo snapped out of his thoughts. Sorry, Guo was distracted. This is the 101 chain blade. Please feel the weight. Guo gripped the hilt and slowly drew the sword. The patterns on the steel were unique, flowing like natural art across the blade. The balance Guo perfect. It felt nothing like that clunky bronze piece Guo would used before. 40,000? Guo asked. Correct, sir. Guo will take it. Wow. A shrill, mocking voice cut through the air behind him. Isn't this his classmate? Guo. Since when did you learn to talk so big? Guo frowned. Guo knew that voice. Guo turned around and saw Yang Wei. Yangyi, Guo muttered. What? You don't recognize your big brother after a few days? He sneered. Yang Wei Guo, one of those people you just can't forget, no matter how hard you try. His talent Guo mediocre at best, but his family had pumped him full of resources to get him to the 5th level of the martial apprentice realm. In a prestigious school like Hanghai 7th, that Guo barely a passing grade. He spent most of his time acting like a servant for a guy named Lin Kai. Guo the definition of a small-time bully. Back when everyone thought Guo was stuck at the 3rd level, he never missed a chance to mock him. Guo easily one of the people Guo hated most. Yang Wei ignored him and turned to the salesgirl, his eyes scanning her up and down. Hey, beautiful. Don't waste your breath on this loser. He's a hopper. He doesn't have 40,000 yuan. Guo will take the sword instead. Are you free tonight? He struck a cool pose and winked. The girl's eyes flashed with a split second of pure disgust. She clearly wasn't interested in his act. Guo is sorry, she said coldly. This gentleman has already claimed the weapon. If he can't pay, then you're welcome to it. Yang Wei laughed, unfazed by the rejection. Beautiful, look at him. His whole outfit probably cost less than 100 yuan. You really think he has the cash? He didn't realize that while Guo wearing a similar style to his old clothes, the quality Guo obvious to anyone who knew gear. The girl, however, wasn't blind. She knew his new outfit Guo made of high-grade beast fur. It cost at least 60,000 yuan on its own. Yang Wei, Guo said, his voice heavy. What? He snapped. Did you forget to take your medicine today? He blinked, confused by the shift in his tone. Guo took it. What? Then why are you acting like a lunatic? Whether Guo can afford it or not is none of your business. The salesgirl let out a muffled snort, trying to hide her laughter. Yang Yi's face turned bright red as he realized Guo just called him crazy to his face. You, he sputtered, unable to find a comeback. Fine. Guo will stay right here and watch you fail to pay. Guo want to see the look on your face when the card declines. He marched over to the counter to wait for the show. What a moron, Guo muttered. Your classmate really isn't the brightest, the girl agreed, nodding. Guo is Ningong Jing, by the way. Guo is a freshman at the Capital 5th Weapons Academy. Hanghai 7th, Class 5, Guo replied. The Capital 5th has a specific weapons academy. They have many, she explained. Alchemy, weapons, research, martial arts, they all teach different disciplines. You'll see for yourself once you get in. She didn't elaborate further. Let's settle the bill. We walked to the counter, Yang Wei Guo hovering nearby, eyes glued to the terminal. The shopkeeper looked at the sword and barked out the price. 101 chain. Long Quan sword. 40,000 yuan bank transfer. Guo said calmly. Guo tapped his phone. The machine beeped transaction successful. Yang Wei stood there frozen, his jaw practically hit the floor. Everyone at school knew Xiao Guo dirt poor in his mind. Guo shouldn't have been able to afford a 40 yuan meal, let alone a 40,000 yuan sword. He looked like he'd just seen a ghost. Guo turned to Yang Yi, who Guo still standing there like a statue. Guo could not resist a little parting shot. So, Yang Wei, Guo said, his voice dripping with feigned curiosity. Do Guo still look like Guo is broke to you? He didn't answer. He just stood there in a stunned silence, his face turning a deep, bruised shade of purple. He had come here to watch him get humiliated, but instead, he'd been slapped in the gate face by reality. Without a single word, he turned on his heel and stormed out of the shop, his ego clearly bruised beyond repair. Guo turned back to the counter. By the way, boss, do you buy scrap metal? Guo pulled out the shattered remnants of his old bronze sword and set them on the glass. The shopkeeper didn't even look up. We don't take trash, he grunted. You just spent 40,000. Why do you care about a broken piece of bronze? It's not worth the cost to remelt it. It's garbage. Guo frowned. Garbage. It's still a sword. Well, half of one. Nongong Jing watched him with a look of pure disbelief, as if she couldn't reconcile his 40,000 yuan purchase with his current stinginess. If that Luan sword breaks, you might get some scrap value for it, she said, a hint of a smile tugging at her lips. But that bronze thing, just toss it. The boss nodded without looking up. Listen to her. It's junk. Guo sighed, feeling a bit disappointed. Guo would carry the broken pieces all this way, hoping to claw back a few bucks. Guo tossed the shards into a nearby trash can and walked out of the store empty-handed, save for his new weapon. Once Guo was gone, the shopkeeper finally raised his head. His bored expression Guo gone, replaced by a sharp, calculating intensity. Miss, he said to Nangong Jing. That boy, he feels dangerous. If you don't know his background, Guo suggests you keep your distance. Nangong Jing blinked in surprise. Dangerous old Mo. You're overthinking it. He's at the 9th level of the apprentice realm at best. Guo is already a 3rd martial artist. If we actually fought, Guo wouldn't be afraid of him. His instincts tell him otherwise. Old Dimo insisted. He used to be a powerful expert in the martial forest realm before a severe injury dropped his cultivation. Even with his powers faded, his intuition Guo sharper than most. Guo cannot explain it, but when he gripped that sword, Guo felt a chill. Guo haven't felt in years. Nangong Jing went quiet. She respected old Mo's history. If a man who almost reached the martial king realm said someone Guo dangerous, you listened. Guo understand, she said softly. But we're in the city. How much trouble can a high schooler really be? She had no idea that old Mo Guo currently reeling from the encounter, even at his lowered level. He shouldn't have felt intimidated by a student. Yet, for a split second, his heart had tightened with genuine fear. Meanwhile, Guo was back at his apartment, completely unaware of the dangerous reputation Guo was building. Guo pulled up his system interface. His experience points had reached a staggering 591,392. Thanks to the Northern Brightness Divine Art, Guo was gaining 9 points every single minute. It felt like Guo would hit the lottery. It was time to level up. Guo focused on his cultivation and the numbers began to plummet. They didn't stop until they hit 491,393. Exactly 99,999 points had been consumed. Suddenly, a surge of mysterious energy erupted within his chest. It was slow at first, then steady, pushing his strength through the 9th level. Early, middle, late, and finally peak. 2 hours passed. Guo thought the process Guo over, but then his mind went completely blank. His consciousness felt like it. Guo floating out of his body. Where am Guo? Guo found himself in a strange ethereal space. Tiny shimmering white dots of light were floating everywhere. Is this spiritual qi? Guo realized that humans probably breathe this in every day to survive, but we're usually blind to it. In this meditative state, Guo could see every single grain of energy. There. Guo. Just one problem. Guo did not have a manual for absorbing qi. The basic gymnastics Guo learned at school were only for tempering the physical body, not for drawing in energy. Hey, little lights. Guo whispered in his mind. Come to Big Brother. Come on, babies. Over here. Guo tried every cheesy line Guo could think of, but the lights just drifted aimlessly. Guo felt like a total creep talking to the air. Just as Guo was about to give up, one tiny speck of light seemed moved by his persistence. It drifted toward him and merged into his skin. The sensation Guo incredible. It felt better than any high-grade pill Guo would ever taken. Suddenly, that first speck acted like a guide. The torn began to swarm toward him, pouring into his pores. Guo started shaking on the sofa. It was pure ecstasy. Every cell in his body, Guo screaming with joy, devouring the energy like a man dying of thirst. Guo felt like Guo was flying through the clouds. As the cheese saturated his muscles, his skin began to itch. Black oily impurities started oozing out of his pores, accompanied by a horrific stench. But Guo was too deep in the trance to notice. Guo stayed in that state until the next morning when Guo finally opened his eyes. Guo was officially a first-level martial artist. Guo let out a long, satisfied groan and stretched. His bones popped and cracked like fireworks. Man, that feels good, Guo muttered. Then the smell hit him. Wait, is the neighbor eating rotten trash? Guo looked down at his arms. They were covered in a thick black sticky sludge. Guo lifted his sleeve to his nose and immediately started gagging. Oh God, is this from him? The joy of breaking through vanished instantly. Guo scrambled into the bathroom, tearing off his clothes and scrubbing his skin until it Guo raw. 2 hours later, Guo emerged holding his 5,000 yuan outfit in a plastic bag at arm's length. It smelled like a chemical spill in a sewer. Even though Guo would pay a fortune for those clothes, Guo could not bring himself to wash them. They were a biohazard. Now, why didn't the teacher warn him about this? Guo grumbled, tossing the expensive trash into the bin outside. Breaking through to the martial artist realm is disgusting. Guo could not believe it. Guo had spent 50,000 yuan on those clothes, wore them for exactly 1 day, and now they were trash. If Guo had known breaking through Guo this messy, Guo would have locked himself in the bathroom first. His teacher, Suing, probably had no idea this would happen. She couldn't be blamed. In the last 100 years, no high school student had ever reached the martial artist realm before graduation. The record Guo, the peak of the 9th level apprentice. Most students didn't hit this stage until they were well into their time at the Big 5 universities. Because of that, teachers didn't even bother teaching us about the cleansing process. They saved that lecture for college. Guo walked back into his living room and the stench hit him like a physical wall. It was nauseating. His sofa Guo covered in the black sludge. Guo had leaked overnight. Guo spent the next hour scrubbing the fabric, gagging the entire time. If the stains hadn't come out, Guo would have had to throw the whole sofa away. By the time Guo finished, Guo was exhausted. Being a housewife must be the hardest job on earth. Guo only cleaned one piece of furniture, and Guo felt like Guo would been fighting monsters in the wild for 3 days straight. Guo slumped down on the clean side of the sofa and pulled out his last 4 low-grade blood-replenishing pills. Guo swallowed them all at once. Usually that would make him feel stuffed with energy, but this time nothing. It wasn't enough. Now that Guo was a martial artist, his body needed way more fuel. Thankfully, his Northern Brightness divine art Guo still pulling chi from the air. But it Guo clear that, being a martial artist Guo going to be an expensive hobby. Guo checked his bank balance. Guo had about 300,000 yuan left after buying his gear. It sounded like a lot, but in this world, that wouldn't even buy one high-quality pill. Guo sighed, trying not to stress. At least Guo had his system. If Guo did not have the Northern Brightness, divine art, Guo would be broke and starving just trying to keep up with his cultivation. Guo called up his status panel to see where Guo stood. Name Guo Realm First Level Martial Artist. Cannot upgrade. Cultivation. Northern Brightness. Divine Art Max Level. Martial Arts Basic Sword Technique. Great success. Basic Movement Great success. Drawing Sword Tech Great success. Experience points 493. 1,673. Guo froze. Guo rubbed his eyes and looked again. Right next to his realm, it clearly said, "Can upgrade." What is this? Guo muttered. Is it because Guo does not have a martial artist level cultivation technique? That had to be it. In the open market, you couldn't even buy a basic tier technique for his current level. They were strictly controlled. To get one, you either had to sign a soul-binding contract with a massive corporation, spend a year doing dangerous missions for the Martial Artist Guild, or get into the Big Five. Even the worst of the top universities gave their students a free manual upon entry. Actually, maybe this Guo a blessing in disguise. If Guo leveled up too fast, people would get suspicious. How would Guo explain reaching the second or third level of a martial artist without a manual? Guo was a poor orphan with nothing but a house. Guo could not exactly claim Guo found a legendary scroll on the sidewalk. Since Guo could not level up his realm, Guo decided to dump his points into his skills. Guo had nearly 500,000 experience points, and Guo was not about to let them sit there. Guo looked at his basic sword technique. It was time to push it to perfection. Guo was careful, though. Guo did not dare upgrade everything at once. The mental strain of going from small success to great success had been brutal. Guo tapped the button for the sword technique and braced himself. His brain suddenly felt like a Guo, being stuffed with hot lead. Information flooded his mind, expanding until Guo thought his skull might actually crack open. Guo gritted his teeth, holding on to consciousness by a thread. Finally, the pressure faded, and his mind drifted into that familiar, mysterious void. But this time, it Guo different. Usually, the figure practicing the sword in this space. Guo blurry, like a low-resolution video or a censored image. Now, the mosaic Guo disappearing. Guo watched mesmerized. Thousands of blurry figures were practicing all around him, but they began to merge. They spun faster and faster, shrinking in number until only one figure remained, standing directly in front of him. Guo gasped. The figure Guo him. He wore the same clothes. He had the same face. He looked sharp, focused, and incredibly cool. Guo would always suspected the figure in the fog Guo him, but seeing it clearly Guo something else. Guo did not even feel shocked. Guo just felt a strange sense of pride. Guo stepped forward to get a better look, but the other him began to fade away. As he vanished, a sword remained, stabbed firmly into the ground. Guo recognized it instantly. It was the Long Quan sword Guo just bought. Guo did not understand why Guo was still in this space, but Guo walked over and gripped the hilt. The moment his fingers closed around the cold metal, a feeling Guo could not describe washed over him. It was as if the sword wasn't a tool anymore. It was an extension of his own arm. The sword suddenly felt alive in his hand. Before Guo could even process what Guo happening, the world around him flickered like a glitching screen. His consciousness Guo yanked out of that mysterious space and slammed back into his own body. Guo opened his eyes to the familiar sight of his messy apartment. Guo was back. What the hell Guo that? Guo muttered, his heart racing. Guo could not shake the sensation from the void. When Guo gripped that lawn sword, it didn't feel like cold steel. It felt like it had a pulse, a heartbeat, like it Guo trying to whisper a secret directly into his soul. His eyes darted to the side, landing on the physical sword Guo had bought. Without thinking, Guo reached out and grabbed it. The blade Guo 105 cm long, 0.9 cm thick, and weighed exactly 2.3 kg. The moment his fingers wrapped around the hilt, a flood of information surged into his brain. Guo knew every detail of this weapon, its balance point, its structural integrity, everything. Guo was stunned. Guo knew. This sword Guo made of 101-layer Damascus steel because the shopkeeper told him, but Guo would never measure the width or the weight. Now, it Guo like the sword had no secrets from him. It didn't even feel like Guo was holding an object. It felt like an extension of his own arm. If Guo had the thought to strike, the sword, Guo already there. Is the perfection stage of basic sword technique really this powerful? Guo wondered. Guo did not realize it yet, but most martial artists only reach perfection after years of brutal combat and deep philosophical realization. They have to see the world and bleed for their craft to truly understand the soul of the blade. But because of his system panel, Guo would bypassed all those decades of struggle. Guo had achieved in his teens what most people couldn't finish in a lifetime. If hard work alone Guo enough, the world wouldn't be plagued by demonic beasts. Am Guo actually a genius? Guo whispered. Guo could not find any other explanation. Guo must have been a hidden sword-fighting prodigy all along, and Guo just never knew it. Guo pulled up his system panel to check his progress. Basic sword technique. Perfection. 0Z. Guo frowned. Guo had been hoping to dump more experience points into it to reach the next level, but the progress bar Guo gone. There had to be a realm above perfection, right? Why wasn't there a requirement? Maybe there are conditions Guo does not know about yet. Guo sighed. Guo guessed Guo is just not educated enough. Guo realized then how much Guo lacked in actual martial theory. Guo was strong, but Guo was ignorant. Forget it, Guo muttered, rubbing his eyes. Sleep first. Guo will break through with his movement technique when Guo wake up. The moment his head hit the sofa, Guo was out, processing all that information from the perfection stage. And spending so much time in the mysterious void had pushed his mental state to the absolute limit. The only reason Guo would stayed awake this long Guo, the sheer adrenaline of the breakthrough. Now that the excitement Guo fading, the exhaustion hit him like a freight train. Outside, in a small restaurant not far from his apartment, a group of thugs sat huddled around a table. Their eyes were glued to his front door. They looked miserable, tired, and incredibly annoyed. Fourth brother, one of them, whispered, his voice cracking with impatience. It's been almost 10 days. That kid hasn't stepped a foot outside. Can't we just break in? The man called fourth brother glared at him, then jerked his chin toward the street. A group of police officers in crisp uniforms Guo patrolling the sidewalk. You want to spend the next few years in a cell? Fourth brother snapped. Look at the heat out there. As long as we stay patient, he'll have to leave eventually. Once he's out of the city, he's ours. Guo is going to wreck him. The younger thug, Xiaoan hissed. His eyes are literally going blurry from staring at that door for 10 days. These guys were from the Tiger Mercenary Group. They've been camping out since they saw him come home, waiting for a chance to strike. Usually, the city guard only got strict a week before the Big 5 exams. And even then, they only worked day shifts. But this year Guo different. The patrols were running 24 hours a day. Down the street, a young officer sighed, looking exhausted. Captain, those guys in the restaurant have been staring at that apartment for days. Should we move them? Ignore them? The captain replied, leaning against a lamp post. As long as they don't start a fight, they can stare until they turn into stone. Just stay sharp. Only a few more days until the exams. Then we can all sleep. Captain, why is the bureau so crazy this year? 24-hour patrols. The captain leaned in, lowering his voice. You know what year this is? It's the 500th anniversary of the era of martial arts. Word is the top brass from the Big 5, including the schools from the imperial capital and the first military academy, are coming to Hanghai City to scout the exams personally. The young officers gasped. Are you serious? His cousin's brother-in-law works security for the Ministry of Education. The captain bragged, puffing out his chest. It's legit. The city wants to look perfect for the scouts. So, suck it up for another 3 hours. When the shift ends, Guo is buying everyone dinner at the food stalls. Long live the captain. The young guys cheered. Inside the apartment, Guo had no idea about the scouts or the thugs waiting for him. 10 days passed in what felt like a blink. Guo was so deep in his cultivation that Guo forgot to eat. Every time Guo felt the pangs of hunger while training in the void, Guo would snap back to reality just long enough to swallow a fasting pill. Guo had started with 21 pills, but Guo was being stingy. Guo only had 7 left in his bag. Guo was pushing himself to the absolute limit. When Guo finally opened his eyes, a flash of excitement flickered through his mind. Guo had done it. His basic combat technique had reached the perfection realm. Just a day ago, Guo had finished maxing out every other skill Guo owned. At first, Guo was not going to bother with hand-to-hand combat. But then Guo thought about it. What if his sword shattered in the middle of a fight? Guo could not just stand there. Guo needed his fist to be just as deadly as his blade. Guo checked his status. Name: Guo. Realm: First Tier Martial Artist. Maxed: Cultivation Art, Northern Brightness, Divine Art. Level Max: Martial Arts. Basic Gymnastics, Level 18. Entry Level: 66. 4 billion Infinity. Basic Combat Perfection 00. Basic Sword Perfection 00. Basic Movement Perfection 0. Sword Drawing Art Perfection 0. Experience 26,086. As a first-tier martial artist, Guo was gaining 10 experience points every single minute. It felt good. Guo was at his absolute peak except for the basic gymnastics, which Guo basically useless now that Guo would reach the martial artist realm. There, Guo nowhere left to put his points. Guo was not a perfectionist. Guo did not feel the need to max out a dead-end skill just for the sake of it. Guo based it in the feeling for a moment before collapsing back onto his bed. Training these techniques Guo physically and mentally draining. His mind felt heavy, like it Guo stuffed with too much information, but the fatigue wasn't as bad as before. It seemed his mental strength had grown. Processing the combat techniques hadn't knocked him out nearly as hard as the sword arts did. Suddenly, his phone buzzed in his bag. Guo pulled it out and saw a name on the screen. Suchin. Guo stared at it. Guo, she calling the wrong person? Guo answered anyway. Hello, Teacher Su. Guo. Her voice came through sharp and urgent. Do you remember what day it is next Monday? Guo glanced at the calendar on the wall. Yeah, Father's Day. Guo knew it. She snapped. Guo, your priorities are all wrong. How could you forget the martial arts entrance exam? It's the most important day of your life. Guo winced. Guo had been so buried in training that the date had completely slipped his mind. Sorry, Teacher Su. Guo just woke up. His brain is still a bit foggy. Guo could practically hear her forehead vein throbbing through the phone. She sighed, her tone softening slightly. Look, Guo, know your cultivation level is a bit low, but don't give up hope yet. Word is the passing scores might be lower this year. If you ace the theory and the technique portions, you still have a shot at the Big Five. Guo stayed silent. What Guo was supposed to say? Actually, teacher, Guo has already broken through to the martial artist realm. She'd never believe him. She'd think Guo was just bragging to save face. Guo, are you listening? She asked, her voice rising again. Guo is here, teacher. Good. Don't waste these last few days. Focus on your theory books. Try to get a perfect score there. Guo will. Guo promised. Guo was about to hang up when she yelled. Wait, don't hang up yet. Monday morning, 8:00 a.m. Sharp, multimedia building for the theory exam, then 11:00 a.m. at the track for the physical assessment. Do not be late. Understood, Guo said. The line went dead. Guo stared at the phone, feeling a bit dazed. Guo wanted to ask about his student ID or other logistics, but Guo gone. Guo clearly stressed. Guo tossed the phone back into his bag and fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. Meanwhile, back at Hanghai 7th High School, Suching put her phone down and let out a long, heavy sigh. What's wrong, Teacher Su? A colleague asked from the next desk. It's Guo, Su Qing muttered. Guo is just worried about his future. The office went quiet. Even though our school Guo for the wealthy elite, there were always a few students from poor backgrounds who had scraped their way in hoping for a miracle. Guo the worst, off among them. Guo has a student named Lin Run, another teacher sighed. Still stuck at the 4th level of the martial apprentice realm. He probably won't even hit the 5th level before the exam. His two. The room filled with the sound of frustrated teachers. In this era, the martial arts exam Guo the only way for a kid from the streets to change their life. It was the simplest path to success. But simple didn't mean easy. It was a brutal, unforgiving climb. The next morning, Guo woke up and stretched. His joints popped like firecrackers. Guo checked the time. Guo had only slept for one night. His mental recovery. Guo definitely getting faster. Usually, after a major breakthrough, Guo was out for at least 2 days. Guo had 5 days left. Guo could not just sit around. Guo needed more experience points. If Guo could stockpile enough, Guo could instantly level up whatever new techniques Guo learned. Once Guo got into a university, Guo packed his gear and headed for the city gates. Outside, in a shadowed alley near his apartment, a man named Shia Guo, sweating as he spoke into his phone. Butler Su, Guo is sorry. The kid hasn't left his apartment in 10 days. We can't just break in. With the exams coming up, the police patrols are everywhere. If we kick down a door now, we're finished. He's just a martial apprentice, the voice on the other end said coldly. Find a way. Butler Su went silent on the other end of the line. As the mayor's right-hand man, he knew how these street thugs operated. They were cowards by nature. They weren't going to risk a heavy police crackdown just to kick in a door. Bring him to him as soon as possible, Su said, his voice dropping to a freezing chill. Dead or alive, the person Guo worked for is losing his patience. Even though Guo did not know who Guo pulling Su's strings, the threat felt heavy. Shiai shivered on the other side of the phone, his voice shaking as he replied, Guo, understand, Butler Su. Guo will get it done. The line went dead. Shiai let out a long breath, his back completely soaked with sweat. He knew the price of failure. The previous leader of the 4th Squad of the Tiger Mercenaries hadn't just lost his job for messing up. The big boss had killed him personally. If Xiaoyi wasn't smart and obedient, a level 5 martial apprentice like him would never have kept his position. One wrong move and he, Guo, a dead man. Suddenly, a younger thug named Xiaoan burst into the room. Xiai frowned. Guo trying to groom the kid, but the boy lacked composure. Steady yourself, Xiao-san. Xiaoyi barked. If the big boss saw you acting like this, you'd be catching a beating. Guo no. Xiao-san panted, his eyes wide. But, Brother C, the kid finally left his apartment. Our guys are tailing him right now. Xiaoyi jumped up, his own composure vanishing instantly. He's out. Where is he? Xiao-san rolled his eyes internally. So much for being steady. He just left the city. He's headed for the wilderness. Heaven is on our side. Xiaoyi grinned. He had been stressing over how to snatch him from his apartment, and now Guo was walking straight into a trap. It was like a gift from God. They quickly contacted the scout, who Guo following him. Xiaoyin grabbed the phone from the scout's hand as soon as they met up. Where is he? He left the city half an hour ago, the scout muttered, looking down. Guo is only at the 3rd level of the martial apprentice realm. Guo did not dare follow him into the wild. Guo lost him. Xiai wanted to explode, but he held it back. A turtle kid following a 5th level target into the monster-infested wilderness. Guo, a suicide mission anyway. He dismissed the scout and turned to Xian. When the rest of the boys get here, we head out, Xiaoxi said, his face hardening. If we can't take him alive, we'll bring Butler Su's corpse. Xiaoan stopped joking around. He saw the look in Xiaoi's eyes and realized how high the stakes were. He remembered the previous squad leader execution. He didn't want to be next. Meanwhile, Guo was miles away, staring at the bodies of 11 windwolves scattered around him. Guo felt a surge of pride. Guo had faced groups of beasts before, but this Guo different. When Guo fought those snakes and toads back at the slaughterhouse, they were already exhausted from fighting each other. These wolves were at full strength. They were fast, but they couldn't even touch him. Guo had cut them down like they were nothing. System notifications popped up in his vision. Asterisk experience plus 6,000 experience plus 500. Guo noticed his northern brightness divine art Guo working faster now, pulling in the energy with incredible efficiency. The only downside that Guo still had to physically touch the carcasses to absorb the points. Within minutes, the wolves were gone, leaving behind only 11 pelts. Don't get cocky, Guo muttered to himself, shaking off the pride. They were only level 1, 6th grade beasts. Guo is a martial artist now. Beating them is just bullying the weak. Guo packed the pelts and kept moving. Guo knew Guo had undergone a qualitative change since breaking through. With all his martial skills at the perfection realm, losing to a pack of wolves would have made him a joke. Still, most new martial artists hated wind wolves. They were fast, they hunted in packs, and they were a nightmare to escape from. Guo had made it look easy. Guo TK'd about 80 kilometers away from Hanghai City. The monsters were getting stronger, mostly around the 8th grade of level 1, but nothing could stop him. Suddenly, a flash of crimson caught his eye near some tall weeds. Guo pushed the grass aside and gasped. Red leaf grass. There were several stalks of vibrant blood-red plants growing in the shade. Guo remembered his herbology classes from sophomore year. This stuff Guo, a primary ingredient for body-tempering pills. On the open market, a single stock Guo worth 200,000 yuan. His old teacher used to joke that if we were brave enough to risk our lives outside the walls, we could strike it rich with just one find. Back then, the old Guo had dreamed of finding some to fund his training, but he Guo too terrified of the beasts to ever try. Guo smiled, feeling like Guo was fulfilling a ghost's dream. Guo reached out and touched the plants. Experience plus 10,000 points from a plant. His heart nearly stopped. This Guo a gold hiss. Guo really didn't expect it. A single tiny plant gave him 10,000 experience points just from absorbing it. Guo remembered that a full packet of body tempering powder only provided 500 points. Damn profiteers, Guo muttered. A packet of that powder cost 30,000 yuan, while a stalk of red leaf grass went for 200,000. The price difference Guo about sixfold, but the actual medicinal potency Guo night and day. Guo did not know the exact price of a finished body tempering pill, but Guo knew it had to be a fortune. Guo cursed the greedy merchants, again in his head. What Guo did not realize back then that body tempering powder Guo actually made from the leftover dregs of the pill-making process mixed with a few cheap fillers. If Guo had known that, Guo would have cursed the alchemists even harder. It even made him consider whether Guo should study alchemy himself once Guo got into a martial arts university. Experience plus 10,000. Experience plus 1,000. His luck, Guo. Incredible. This spot hadn't been discovered by anyone else. In total, these red leaf grass stalks provided him with a staggering 110,000 experience points. It was basically free money. Guo did not even think about harvesting them to sell. Guo was already carrying enough monster pelts, which were worth plenty of cash. Besides, Guo remembered from his studies that these herbs needed special containers to preserve their potency once picked. Without them, the medicinal value would just bleed away, absorbing them directly into the system. Guo much more efficient. Guo looked around. If red leaf grass grew here, maybe there were more nearby. Even if the chances were slim, it Guo, worth keeping an eye out. One stock Guo worth 10,000 points. That Guo a sweet deal. Xiao Wang, are you sure about this? A man asked. Brother Long, Guo is positive, Xiao. Wang replied respectfully. 2 months ago, his friends and Guo were clearing this area. The red leaf grass wasn't fully ripe yet, so we camouflaged the spot. Based on the timing, it should be ready now. Xiao Wang's voice. Guo polite, but his heart Guo heavy. If his buddies, Adai and Scarface, hadn't mysteriously vanished, he never would have reported this find to his superior. Back then, the leaves hadn't turned fully crimson. Unripe grass Guo worth less than a third of the price of a mature stock. They had hidden it, promising to come back together. Now, he couldn't reach any of them. He regretted not just picking it back then. If the grass is still there, Brother Long said, ignoring the fact that Xiao Wang had hidden the find for 2 months, Guo will credit you with a win and promote you to squad leader. Thank you, Brother Long. Xiao Wang's bitterness vanished instantly. He started praying that no one had stumbled onto their secret. They hiked for about half an hour until Xiao Wang recognized the landmarks. Brother Long, it's right there by that tree. Brother Long grunted a steady reply, but his heart Guo racing. Red leaf grass wasn't common. If he could get enough to refine a few body tempering pills, he wouldn't have to worry about resources for his current realm. Even raw, it could help him break through 2 minor stages. He had been stuck at the 5th level of the martial artist realm for far too long simply because he Guo too poor to buy supplies. As they got closer, Xiao Wang grew more anxious. His promotion depended on this. The next second, their hopes shattered. They pushed aside the weeds. But the ground Guo empty. There Guo nothing but common grass. Brother Long, it's gone. Someone took it, Xiao Wang said, his voice dropping. Brother Long didn't say a word. He knelt, down, brushing the dirt with his fingers. If Guo had been there, Guo would have been shocked. Guo touching the exact spot where Guo had just stood. He looked at the small, unsealed holes in the dirt. The soil is still damp. These were pulled about an hour ago. His eyes sharpened. He counted 11 small pits, all roughly the same size. That meant there had been at least 11 stocks. Brother Long felt a surge of adrenaline. Shia Wang had said there were a few, but 11 Guo, a massive haul. They were just here. Brother Long growled, his voice heavy with intent. Search the area. If we find them, we'll ask for the grass back. Xiaolong perked up. His promotion Guo back on the table. Guo spent a while circling the area, but Guo did not find any more red leaf grass. Guo figured Guo was being greedy. This wasn't exactly a deserted wasteland. If there were more, they would have been snatched up long ago. Thinking back to how well that patch Guo hidden under layers of weeds, Guo realized it must have been camouflaged by someone waiting for it to ripen. Guo decided to stop hunting for herbs and let things happen naturally. Suddenly, a noise caught his ear. What Guo that? Guo looked around, but the woods were empty. Not a single monster, Guo in sight. Guo figured Guo was just over-exited in hearing things. Chirp, squeak, hiss. The sounds came again, longer and more distinct this time, though still distant. Guo knew Guo was not crazy. Guo whispered. It sounded like monsters fighting. Even though Guo could not see them yet, Guo started moving toward the noise. Guo still remembered the last time Guo stumbled upon a monster brawl. Guo had walked away with 500,000 experience points just by scavenging the leftovers. If there Guo a fight, profit to be made. Guo followed the sounds, but the woods went silent again. Guo stopped and waited, holding his breath. A minute later, the intermittent cries started up again. Guo picked up the pace, moving quickly toward the source. As the sounds grew clearer, his expression shifted from excitement to confusion. This didn't sound like a chaotic brawl. If his ears weren't tricking him, there were only 3 creatures ahead, and the sounds they were making were strange. One of the voices sounded like a bird. Another Guo, clearly a snake. The third one, though, Guo could not quite place it. It sounded a bit like a rat, but there Guo, something heavier to it, something more dangerous. Guo was deep in the forest now. Massive trees towered over him, their branches knitting together to block out the sun. Guo did not recognize the species, but that didn't matter. Guo had come this far. Guo was not turning back. Now. Besides, if things got hairy, Guo could just bolt. His basic movement technique, Guo at the perfection level. Between his speed and the thick terrain, Guo was confident Guo could outrun even a level 3 monster. Big monsters hate dense forests. They can't move their massive bodies through the brush. Guo crept forward and spotted a creature perched on a high branch. Is that a gale sparrow? Guo wondered. Guo was not entirely sure. Back in high school, they mostly taught us about level 1 monsters. Level 2 stuff Guo in the textbooks. But the pictures were grainy and hard to compare to the real thing. Guo had never seen a live gale sparrow before, but it fit the description. As for anything level 3, Guo could not imagine one showing up in a place like this. Guo moved a bit closer, and the view suddenly opened up. Guo was standing near a steep cliff, maybe 30 or 40 m high. 3 monsters were positioned in a tense triangle facing off in front of the rock wall. Now that Guo had a clear line of sight, Guo identified the other 2. 1. Guo bright green with a triangular head and 3 eerie eyes. Its arms were shaped like massive jagged blades. That Guo a double-blade mantis, a notorious level 2 monster. The last one, Guo unmistakable, a king cobra. Its hood Guo flared wide, showing off that iconic spectacle-shaped pattern on its back. Another level 2. The 3 of them were hissing and chirping at each other. Guo does not speak monster, but it wasn't hard to guess they were arguing over something. The fact that they were at a stalemate told him the gale sparrow Guo, definitely, level 2 as well. If it were level 3, the other 2 would have been bird food 10 minutes ago. Strange, Guo whispered to himself. These 3 are natural enemies. Guo stayed low, not daring to show his face. Even though there were only 3 of them, they were deadly. As Guo watched, Guo noticed something subtle. Their heads kept twitching toward the cliff side. It was a tiny movement, so small Guo almost missed it. But they were definitely keeping an eye on the rock wall. Guo scanned the cliff, but saw nothing at first. Then Guo shifted his position. Hidden behind a cluster of thick shrubs and blocked by two large trees. Guo the entrance to a cave. There has to be something good in there, Guo thought. You don't get 3 level 2 monsters playing a game of Mexican standoff over an empty hole. Just as Guo was weighing his options, the tension snapped. Negotiation time, Guo. Over. His heart started thumping against his ribs. The king cobra lost its patience first. It lunged forward, snapping its jaws open. 2 streams of jet black venom shot out like bullets. One aimed at the mantis and the other at the sparrow. The Gale sparrow didn't even break a sweat. It just flapped its wings and took to the sky. The mantis Guo, just as casual, stepping an inch to the right, so the venom hissed harmlessly past. One of those venom streaks flew right toward him, slamming into a tree about 10 m away. Guo watched in horror as the bark began to sizzle and pop. Within seconds, the black sludge ate a hole straight through the trunk. The hole kept growing wider and wider until it grew the size of a basketball. His skin crawled. If that hit him, Guo would be lucky to survive with his skin intact. Guo had a sinking feeling they already knew Guo. Guo there. Guo was right. To monsters like these, Guo was just a tiny, weak bug watching from the sidelines. Guo was not worth their time. At least not yet. The Gale sparrow retaliated from the air. It spread its wings wide, then snapped them shut with a sharp whoosh. 2 visible blades of wind sliced through the air, screaming toward its opponents. Holy crap, Guo muttered. Is that really just level 2? Guo knew snakes could spit venom, but wind blades, that Guo some high stuff. What Guo did not know Guo that Gale sparrows unlocked this wind bee blade ability the moment they hit level 2. The king cobra didn't bother dodging. It just let its tough scales take the hit. But the double blade mantis, that thing, Guo, a badass. It didn't move an inch until the wind blade Guo right in its face. Then, with a flash of green, it swung its right arm playing. The wind blade, Guo sliced clean in half, dissipating into the trees on either side. Guo was actually impressed. That Guo, the coolest thing Guo would seen since Guo got to this world. The mantis didn't waste the opening. It blurred into motion, its speed explosive as it charged the cobra. It couldn't reach the bird in the trees, so the snake Guo the next best target. It leaped into the air, bringing both massive blades down in a crushing overhead strike. The king cobra's tail lashed out, and the real fight began. The king cobra tried to slap the mantis away with its massive tail, but it underestimated its opponent. In midair, the double-blade mantis twisted its body with impossible agility, shifting its strike toward the snake's tail. The collision Guo, violent. Both beasts were sent flying backward from the force of the impact. Through the thick leaves, Guo saw them lock eyes. Their pupils narrowed into slits. Guo could feel the raw, killing intent radiating from them. The cobra moved first. Its tail lashed out again in a blinding blur, sweeping toward the mantis. The mantis crossed its blades in a defensive X shape, absorbing the blow, but the force pushed it back 4 heavy steps. As soon as it found its footing, it lunged forward. It slammed its blades down, pinning the tail to the ground. 2 deep, bloody gashes appeared on the snake's flesh. The king cobra hissed in pain and yanked its tail back, scales scraping against the dirt. The Gale sparrow saw its chance. It wasn't about to let a golden opportunity like this pass. It dived from its branch like a streak of gray lightning. Talons extended, aiming straight for the cobra's head. But the mantis wasn't interested in sharing. Just as the bird Guo about to make contact, the mantis leaped. Its green body blurred as it intercepted the sparrow, its blades catching the bird's wing. Feathers exploded into the air. The sparrow screeched in fury as it tumbled to the ground, its wing badly mangled. It knew it, Guo at a disadvantage on the forest floor. It tried to beat its wings, desperate to regain the safety of the sky. The king cobra wasn't going to let it go that easily. Seeing the bird Guo grounded, the snake launched itself like a spring. It caught the sparrow midair, coiling its thick, muscular body around the bird in a suffocating grip. The sparrow fought back like a demon. It pecked frantically at the snake's body, its sharp beak tearing through scales. Blood sprayed everywhere. Guo watched his scales popped off the snake's skin, leaving gaping red holes. The cobra didn't let go. It squeezed harder. Crack. Even from his hiding spot, Guo heard the sound of the sparrow's bones snapping. After a few final pathetic chirps, the bird went limp. It was over. The mantis watched the whole thing, its weariness growing. It knew the snake Guo dangerous when it started coiling. The moment the sparrow breathed its last, the mantis struck. The cobra, Guo ready. It had been watching the mantis the entire time, expecting a backstab. It dropped the dead bird and whipped its tail around, forcing the mantis back. Then the snake did something insane. It let out a deafening hiss and lunged forward with its jaws wide open. It didn't try to bite. It tried to swallow the mantis whole. It wanted to trap the insect in its mouth and let the venom do the work. The mantis fought for its life inside those jaws. It used its left blade to prop the mouth open, preventing the snake from snapping its head off. With its right blade, it slashed wildly at the soft tissue of the snake's throat. They stayed locked like that for a long time. Eventually, the mantis ran out of strength. Its arms began to tremble. As it collapsed, it made one final desperate move. It jammed both of its blades upward, straight into the roof of the snake's mouth. The cobra felt the resistance vanish and let out a triumphant hiss. It bit down with everything it had, crushing the mantis. But its victory lasted only a second. Suddenly, the snake began to writhe in agony. It rolled across the forest floor, thrashing its tail and trying to spit the mantis out. No matter how hard it shook, the dead insect stayed lodged in its throat. The mantis had gotten the last laugh. One of its blades had pierced through the roof of the mouth and driven straight into the cobra's brain. The snake's movements, Guo alone survives the deadly standoff. Stronger, richer, and fully committed to living the second life his first body never allowed.